This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate second part of what if Naruto and Ino created a Fox clan. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no time, let's start the story.
What? Hinata asked, blinking in confusion. As Blanc began to get covered in lightning, Shin uttered the words, "This. He can use lightning chakra nature." Hinata exclaimed in shock as Shin raised Blanc into the air and surrounded him with a lightning pulse wave. She moved swiftly to block the wave with her rotation, but the others weren't so fortunate. "Oh no!" As electricity flowed through his body, Naruto moaned. Shin pointed Blanc in Hinata's direction and remarked, "And now we're done to one." As she assumed her soft fist stance, Hinata threatened, "You'll pay for what you did to my friends." Hinata's eyes widened as Shin told her, "If you want to make me pay, then stop holding back." Shin vanished and resurfaced above Naruto with Nore raised, saying, "Don't look so surprised. You're much stronger than this, so if you don't want your friends to die." As he brought Nore down on Naruto, he was caught between Hinata's thumb and palm, saying, "Then fight me seriously." As Shin attempted to cut her with Blanc, Hinata grabbed his wrist and said, "Don't you ever." Using Shin's arms as leverage, Hinata raised her feet off the ground and kicked him on his chest, sending him back while she backflipped. "Lay a hand on Naruto-kun," she yelled, her eyes narrowing to slits but still barely visible. Shin skidded across the dirt, then stopped and vanished. Hinata said, "No you don't," as she vanished as well. Naruto asks, "Where did they go?" as he tries to look around but is unable to do so because he is unable to move his head. Suddenly, booming noises can be heard, and trees are smashed. Lying on his back, Sai said, "I see them." He saw Hinata and Shin fight for a moment before vanishing and then resurfacing as they did so. "How's Hinata? Chan?" Naruto inquires anxiously. They heard a strange noise as soon as Sai said to Naruto, "It's hard to tell but they appear to be even." "What was that?" Naruto inquired, feeling uneasy. Seeing the source of the noise, Sakura sat on her knees facing forward and whispered, "No way." Naruto asks her, "What is it, Sakura? Chan?" But then he smells blood. Fearing the worst, Naruto trailed off, "This blood smells like." With Nore running through the right side of Hinata's stomach and blood streaming down from the tip of the blade, Shin declared, "Looks like I win." Hinata had her head down and her left hand out, deflecting Blanc by striking Shin's wrist. He coughed up blood and looked down to see Hinata's palm against his chest. "You fought well but in the end lit." Shin interrupted himself. Nore was still embedded in Hinata when he staggered back, muttering, "Damn." As he watched Hinata, Shin thought, "At least she won't be able to move since Nore can even absorb the movement from your muscles, making you immobile." However, as Hinata began to move and pull Nore out, Shin's eyes widened in surprise. "That's impossible, how can you still move?" With her hair covering her eyes, Hinata remarked, "I figured out how your swords work." Hinata lifted her head to smile at Shin, saying, "They can only do those and not the other since this one can absorb physical movement and the white one can absorb chakra. So if I covered my hand in chakra I should be able to stop this from absorbing my physical attacks. As for your white one, I simply use physical attacks but I can still use chakra as long as I don't actually hit the blade like your wrist for example." Hinata said, and Shin dropped Blanc because his wrist began to hurt. As Blanc started to rise but was pushed back down when Hinata stepped on it while still holding Nore, Shin asked, "Have you forgotten about what I said earlier?" "I haven't forgotten, and in case you're wondering I gathered chakra around my wound just in case your sword can stop my muscles from moving," Hinata murmured to him. Shin said, grinning with amusement as he dropped to his knees, "Hey, you got me." Toby thought to himself, so it appears that he can be stopped after all. However, Zetsu appeared from the tree branch he was perched on. Everyone heard Zetsu tell Toby, "The battle is over, Sasuke has won." Toby said, "Excellent, just as I'd expected." Shin pulled a bomb out of his sleeve and threw it in front of himself, causing everyone to close their eyes as he said, "So Sasuke won his battle, that's good, I have to go congratulate him." Nore then vanished and reappeared in Shin's left hand as he opened it, and he used its capacity to strengthen his leg muscles to accelerate and flee. When the light went out, Hinata turned to see that Shin had vanished. As Hinata felt Blanc vanish beneath her foot, she said disappointedly, "He got away." Shin was panting and leaning his back against a tree a few miles away. He said, "Damn, she got me good." He reached inside his hoodie and took out a clear corked bottle that contained several pills. He took one pill out, put the cork back on, put the bottle back in his hoodie, and swallowed the pill. Shin trailed off as Sasuke fell to the ground, saying, "I have to get to Sasuke before the paralyzes have worn off and the group is reorienting itself with the Sasuke retrieval team." Kiba proudly exclaimed, "Wow, that was incredible, Hinata," for his teammate. Hinata said shyly, "It was nothing." Kiba informed her, "It was definitely not nothing." Naruto praised his mate, saying, "Yeah, Kiba's right, Hinata. Chan, you were incredible. You sent him running for the hills." Even though they were intimate, had a close relationship, and had children together, Hinata still felt ashamed when Naruto complimented her, and her face flushed during the exchange. Sakura observed that Hinata behaved differently around Naruto than she did with the others after observing her response to Naruto's compliment. Sakura watched as Naruto continued to compliment Hinata, causing her face to flush more deeply. Could Hinata have feelings for Naruto? She asked herself. She murmurs, "No doubt about it." But her heart aches. What is this? Sakura asked herself, covering her heart with her hand. Alright, if everyone's alright now, we should get moving. Hinata, can you see ahead so we don't run into anything unexpected? Kakashi responded. As Hinata activated her Byakugan and her eyes widened in shock at what she saw, she said, "Sure. I see black flames burning the forest." Kakashi thought, that must be Amaterasu. As they started toward the black flames and the sky grew darker, he gave the order, "Okay, everyone, move out." Shin raises his head off the floor and exclaims, "Huh?" He got back up and brushed himself off, saying out loud to no one, "I thought I was in a warm tunnel heading towards a bright light. Well, I'm glad I took my Dedison before I kicked the bucket. That Hyuga girl was really strong and she has huge boobs too. Well, anyway, better go find Sasuke," he thought to himself prior to hurrying. A wall of black flames is preventing Naruto's group from reaching Sasuke's location in the meantime. "Is there a way to get around this?" requested Naruto impatiently. "There doesn't appear to be a way around," Hinata told him sadly after activating her Byakugan and surveying the area. Kakashi informed everyone, "We'll have to wait for a path to open." Disappointed that Sasuke is so close but he is unable to reach him, Naruto utters, "It'll be too late by then." Yamato clasped his palms together and said, "I think I can do something about that, senpai." A wood wall is pushing up the ground in front of them, and the trees that are being eaten by the black flame are being parted, creating a clear path for them to follow. "All right, Yamato Captain." As they proceeded along the route that Captain Yamato had given them, Naruto cheered. Rain soon began to fall, but they were unfazed, and when they eventually reached the ruins, they noticed evidence of a battle, but the fighters were nowhere to be seen. Looking at Kakashi, Pakun sniffs the area and remarks, "Sasuke was here. His scent is all over the area. Is it possible to identify him?" Pakun shook his head in response to Kakashi's question. According to Pakun, the scent seems to have disappeared. It's as if he vanished. After surveying the area, Naruto slams his fist into the floor and says, "Damn it, Sasuke, why do you keep slipping away?" Sakura smiles and opens her mouth to say something, but someone speaks before her because she can't bear to see Naruto in this state. "Don't worry, Naruto-kun, we'll find him," Hinata assures him as she walks towards him and kneels next to him. "We just need to keep looking," she tells him with a gentle smile as she places her right hand over his. Naruto looks at Hinata and smiles. "Thanks, Hinata. Chan, you're right, I can't give up. I'll just have to keep trying." "You're welcome, Naruto-kun, and I'll be there with you so you won't have to do this alone," Hinata told him as she gently squeezed his hand. Sakura stared wide-eyed, the pang in her chest is back. Even as the rain hit her face, Sakura didn't register it. Her mind was going over Naruto and Hinata's conversation. "It's just like what I told him back when Sasuke left the village," she thought, and then she recalled Hinata's battle with Shin. "Hinata is a lot stronger and more skilled than I am. I'm just holding Naruto back," she thought as tears started to run down her face but were masked by the rain. After concluding that Sasuke couldn't be located, the Konoha group decided to find shelter before reporting back to the Leaf. Captain Yamato created another wooden house and everyone got settled in. Later that night, when everyone else was fast asleep, Sakura snuck out of the house to do some training. She practiced the taijutsu tsunade taught her against some boulders, smashing them to pieces and maneuvering through the falling pieces. She then gathered the pieces and threw them into the air and attempted to catch one of them, but despite catching a few of them she couldn't catch the majority. She kept trying over and over again to catch them, but she was nowhere near fast enough. She tried using shadow clones to help her, but she could only create 3 clones and they still didn't help her catch them all. Eventually her chakra was depleted and her clones disappeared. She fell to her knees and was pelted by the falling rocks. She was panting hard as she started recalling how she was easily beaten by Shin. She remembered how he mocked her and called her weak. Sakura grit her teeth as she stood back up and began to practice her taijutsu by punching the air. "You're pathetic." Shin's words echoed in her mind as she continued practicing. "You're so weak, I'm surprised you're not dead yet." Sakura began jumping across the trees to work on her agility. "I have to get stronger, I have to help Naruto bring back Sasuke-kun," she told herself as she pushed herself harder. "You're too busy thinking about your precious Sasuke-kun to take anything seriously." Sakura suddenly stops and lands on the ground. "You're pretty easy to read, which makes sense why everyone is walking circles around you." "That's pathetic." Sakura then recalls how Ino is now beating her in training and how Hinata was able to actually beat Shin. "Even though you were trained by one of the legendary Sannin, there's still nothing special about you." Sakura's body starts trembling as she falls on her hands and knees. "The only thing you might actually be useful for is as a baby factory, but who would want to breed with a useless girl like you? I feel bad for any future kids you have since they'll be stuck with your useless DNA." Shin's laugh echoed in her mind and she finally broke down. "I can't do it, I can't become strong. And if I can't get stronger, what use am I to anyone, especially to Naruto?" Sakura says out loud as she remembers how Naruto was hanging around Ino and his interaction with Hinata. "You're better off with them, then you were with me," she said, defeated as sob rocked her body. "What makes you so sure?" Sakura's head shoots up and looks back to see Naruto standing next to a tree. "And Naruto?" Sakura was surprised to see him, but then she realized the state she was in and quickly got up. "What are you doing here?" she asked as she started wiping her tears. "I wanted to do some training, I guess you had the same idea," Naruto said sheepishly as he tried to lighten the mood. "If you want you can have this spot, I'll look for another one," Sakura told him while still having her back to him and started to leave. "Wait, Sakura-chan," Naruto called out to her and made her stop. "What?" Sakura replied a little coldly. "Do you want to train with me?" Naruto inquires. "I don't think I would be much of a training partner," Sakura tells him without looking back. "That's ridiculous, you're the perfect training partner," Naruto tells her honestly. After giving him a small smile, Sakura quickly frowns and says, "Okay, if you're so insistent then I'll train with you." She then turns to face Naruto and asks, "So what do you want to work on?" "How about we work on improving my dodging, and since Ba-chan taught you how to avoid attacks very well, then you're the perfect person to help me," smiles Naruto. As she assumes her taijutsu stance, Sakura tells him, "Okay, but I'm going to hold back a little bit so I don't accidentally hurt you." "Give me everything you have, don't hold back," Naruto informs her. "Are you crazy? What if you get badly hurt if you can't avoid my blows in time?" Sakura asks in shock. Naruto should know what he's getting himself into because he's been the target of her punches before. "I'm dead serious, Sakura-chan. Our enemy isn't going to pull any punches, so I don't want you to either," Naruto stated to her. With a sigh, Sakura said, "Fine, but don't blame me if I seriously hurt you," observing Naruto's solemn expression. Naruto smiles confidently and reassures her, "Don't worry, even if I get seriously hurt, I have you here to fix me up." "Baka." The air pressure of her fist blasted several trees behind her. Sakura said, as she charged forward, gathering chakra into her right fist. She throws a right hook, but Naruto leans his head to the left, making Sakura miss. "Sakura-chan, that was incredible," Naruto says, "I'm impressed," to her. As she continues her attack, Sakura tells him, "That was nothing special." She is shocked that Naruto avoided that. "Not much noteworthy." Naruto tells Sakura-chan, "You can do things I probably can't do," as he sidesteps her blows. "Like what?" Sakura asks, alternating between kicks and punches. As he avoids one of Sakura's kicks that easily shatter a tree behind him, Naruto begins, Well, for one, you're a lot smarter than I am. As she begins to grow irritated that Naruto is avoiding her attacks, Sakura tells him, book smarts can only get you so far. But you need book smarts to help you understand how to do certain things and improve your skills, which brings me to my second point. You're an amazing medical ninja. I would bet you're better than Ba-chan now. Naruto says to her. I am not even close to Lady Tsunade's level, Sakura said in frustration as she suddenly slams her palm together in front of her, creating a shockwave that knocks Naruto back and over some bushes. Realizing what she did, Sakura quickly rushes to his aid. Naruto, are you okay? When she gets to the bushes and finds him lying on a pile of rocks, she asks anxiously. As Naruto tries to get into a comfortable position, he moans in pain and says, I'm okay, these rocks broke my fall. Ow. Sakura stretches her right hand out and says, here, let me help you. Naruto accepts it, and she helps him stand up. Are you okay? Apart from my back pain, I'm fine, Naruto assured her. He complies with Sakura's instructions to turn around and let me take a look. Take off your jacket. Sakura commands Naruto to do so, and he does. She gathers chakra in her hands and rests her palms on his back. As his back pain starts to go away, Naruto says to Sakura, Chan, a little better, thanks Sakura. Chan, can you go a little lower? As she began to feel hot, Sakura thought, his muscles feel hot. Sure. She ran her hands down his back and thought, does it hurt anywhere else? He turned around and said, somewhat mischievously, my chest hurts a little. When Sakura saw Naruto's muscular chest, her face turned completely red. She placed her hands on his chest and began to gently stroke it, thinking, his chest is so hard and strong. As she moved her hands down to his abs, she shivered a little because of the sensation of his abs against her hands. Her nose detected a very pleasant smell that made her breathing irregular. I never knew Naruto smelled this good before, Sakura thought as she started to lean from side to side. To steady her, Naruto grabs Sakura by the shoulders. Are you alright, Sakura-chan? Knowing full well what was wrong with her, Naruto asks. Sakura comforts him as the pleasant scent intensifies, leaning her body toward the source of the scent with her eyes half closed. Yeah, just felt dizzy there for a minute. Sakura-chan? Sakura realizes she was leaning on Naruto's chest when her eyes fully open. Wah! Sakura pushes herself away from Naruto, but she stumbles and falls backwards. Sakura-chan, are you okay? Naruto asks, reaching out to take her hand and drawing her back to him. Naruto has such nice eyes, Sakura says, resting her head against his powerful chest. His heartbeat is very soothing. She lifts her head from his chest to gaze into his deep blue eyes. Naruto holds her tenderly while grinning. Hey Sakura-chan? Well? Naruto tells her honestly, I'm very lucky to have you as my teammate. Sakura's eyes widen as she looks up at him. How can you say that? What are you saying? Naruto inquires. With tears in her eyes, Sakura remarked, after the way I treated you back at the academy and even after we became genin. Naruto told her, hey, we were kids back then, and I did kinda deserved it with how I acted. Sakura, however, didn't see it that way. Naruto, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Sakura apologized as tears started to run down her cheeks. What are you apologizing for, Sakura-chan? You did nothing wrong. Naruto was a little confused at Sakura's sudden behavior. I'm sorry, I'm so weak. Sakura yells in anguish as she buries her head against Naruto's chest, finally letting out what she has been feeling since her first encountering Shin. Hey, you're not weak, Sakura-chan. Yes, I am. Sakura cries as she remembers Shin's words and how much stronger Ino and Hinata have become. I'm no longer fit to be a shinobi. I can't support you like I promised. I'm sorry, Naruto, but if I continue to go with you on missions, then I'll get you killed. Sakura-chan, look at me. Naruto now realizes that Sakura's strange behavior was caused by their encounter with Shin. As Sakura looks up at Naruto, he smiles and says, you won't get me killed, Sakura-chan. On the contrary, if it weren't for you, I'd probably be dead already. Sakura acknowledges that Naruto is correct after giving his words some time to sink in. But what if I can't save you? Do you want to know why I keep getting stronger, Sakura-chan? Sakura nods in response to Naruto's question. It's so I can protect my precious people from anything. Naruto presses his right hand to Sakura's face and says, "And you are one of my most precious persons, Sakura-chan." He then leans in to give her a full face kiss. The unexpected kiss causes Sakura's eyes to enlarge. "Why is Naruto kissing me?" Sakura screams in her head, but then her eyes close and she kisses him back. Naruto mentally smiles and licks her lower lip, asking for permission to enter her mouth. Sakura opens her mouth to let Naruto kiss her more deeply, and their tongues battle for control as Sakura cups Naruto's face with her hands and he lowers his hands to his back, giving it a firm squeeze that makes Sakura moan as they kiss. Sakura runs her fingers through Naruto's blonde hair, digging her nails into his scalp, and she is so engrossed in the kiss that she doesn't notice the red chakra bubbling out of Naruto's body and starts to cover them both. "Naruto's kisses are so delicious that I can't stop kissing him," Sakura thought as she gave Naruto a hungry kiss. Naruto was ecstatic because the girl he had a huge crush on in the academy, the girl who didn't want anything to do with him, the girl who was crazy about Sasuke, was kissing him with such hunger and passion that it was as if she had been deprived of something she needed to survive. "Don't get ahead of yourself, this is just the start," Naruto thought as he parted from Sakura and left a thin trail of saliva connecting their mouths. He then began kissing Sakura down her neck, stopping just above her collarbone. Sakura let out a loud moan, and Naruto grinned at this. He then planted a lingering kiss on the spot he nibbled, pulling back until the red chakra started to recede back into Naruto, but some of it receded into Sakura. As he tenderly strokes Sakura's right side of her face, Naruto gazes into her half-lidded eyes and says, "Sakura-chan, let me be your strength." "What?" Sakura responded, still experiencing the afterglow of the kiss. Naruto tells her, "I know that if you were with me I can get a lot stronger and I can make you stronger too, Sakura-chan. We've been training alone for far too long, so we need to work together if we want to have any chance of bringing Sasuke back to the village." He cups her face with his other hand and says, "Sakura-chan, let me help you." Naruto then dips his head to plant a passionate kiss on Sakura's lips before he leaves, saying, "I will give you more kisses if you do." Sakura considered his offer. Naruto could definitely help her become much stronger, and the kisses only made it more difficult. "Are you certain I won't get in your way?" Sakura asked. With timidity, she inquired. "Not at all." "Okay. All right. What?" Naruto made fun of it. Sakura said with a small smile, "I'll train with you, Baka." Naruto grinned and said, "You won't regret it." Sakura pulled Naruto in for another kiss after saying, "You better not." A few hours later, in a different place, Madara Uchiha and his teammates were standing a few feet behind Sasuke as he gazed out to sea while mentally reliving the lessons he had learned over the previous few hours. "So you were kicked in the butt?" Karen smirked as she asked. "Yes." "Stop talking. Karen has been rubbing it in his face ever since he told them what happened," Shin informed her. "How does it feel to lose for once, hee?" Karen kept making fun of it. Shin started to say, "Why you?" but stopped when she saw that Sasuke had turned away. With his Sharingan activated, Sasuke told them, "From now on, we are Team Taka, and our goal is the elimination of the Leaf Village elders Kaharu Udatane, Homura Mitokata, and Danzo Shimura." As he stretched, Shin remarked, "Looks like we're going to visit the Leaf Village." When Naruto's group returned to the Leaf Village the following day, they gave Tsunade their report. "So your mission didn't work out?" Gazing at the group of shinobi in her office, Tsunade said. Kakashi confirmed, "Yes, Lady Tsunade." Tsunade exhaled. "At least you all made it back. Judging from your report, that's all that matters given who your opponent was." Kakashi remarked, "It wasn't a total loss, milady." She looked at Hinata and said, "Oh yes, that. It seems we found an advantage against Shin." Tsunade laughed a little before dismissing everyone but Kakashi, and Hinata looked down as her cheeks flushed. "So, did anything strange happen during your mission?" "Yes." Tsunade's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" Hinata can also use the Flying Thunder God technique. When Tsunade heard this, she was clearly taken aback. "Her too." Kakashi nods. "What's happening?" "Shizune, I need you to get me Hiyashi Hyuga right away," she said, glancing at her first apprentice after Naruto, Ino, and now Hinata. "Yes, milady." Shizune ran out the door. Concerned that the situation would worsen, Tsunade told Kakashi, We need to get to the bottom of this. When Naruto arrived at the Yamanaka flower shop, he was disappointed to see Ino's mother working the register. Nevertheless, he opened the front door and entered the store because he wanted to see Ino and tell her everything about his mission. "Hello, Naruto. How may I help you?" Mrs. Yamanaka inquired. She was aware of Naruto's innermost thoughts but was cautioned against assuming that Naruto was the fox. "Oh, is Ino present?" Nervously, Naruto asked. Mrs. Yamanaka grinned knowingly and said, "I'm sorry, Naruto, but Ino left on a mission yesterday." Seeing Naruto's obvious disappointment at hearing that, she said, "But I believe she told me she would be back today." This made him feel better. "Okay, thanks. Naruto, would you like to join us for dinner? I'm pretty sure Ino will be back and you two can see each other," Mrs. Yamanaka said abruptly. Naruto informed her, "Oh, I wouldn't want to impose." Mrs. Yamanaka reassured him, "Nonsense, it would have been just the two of us anyway, because my husband is also on a mission." Naruto thanked her and walked out the door, saying, "Okay, thanks, I'll be back later then." He must truly like Ino. Are they already dating? Mrs. Yamanaka thought. Beneath the community. "Are you positive about this?" a man asks while wearing bandages over a portion of his face. "Yes, Lord Danzo. Hyuga Hinata was using the fourth Hokage's famed jutsu," Sai stated. "It will be challenging to keep an eye on the Hyuga, particularly within her clan's compound," Danzo muses, "so with the Jinchuriki and the Yamanaka girl that makes 3 people who know that jutsu besides the fourth Hokage. Thus, we will concentrate on the Yamanaka and the Jinchuriki." "Naruto, I'm sorry." Sai bowed before leaving, saying, "Yes, Lord Danzo." Team Asuma, meanwhile, is taking a brief break from their journey at a roadside tea shop a few miles outside the village before returning to the Leaf. With a frustrated tap of her right foot, Ino grumbled, "Hurry up you 3, I want to make it to the village before nightfall." "Ino, what's the rush?" As he made an effort to sip his tea quietly, Shikamaru inquired. As he bit into the sweet, Choji remarked, "Yeah, I want to savor these delicious sweets." "The problem is that..." Ino froze, a familiar scent wafting into her nostrils. This caught Azuma's attention. "What's wrong, Ino?" After leaving the tea shop, Ino noticed a familiar face down the street. "This is a surprise, I didn't expect someone would be waiting for me," the Suna Kunoichi said as she stood a few feet in front of Ino. Ino is standing outside the tea shop, staring at the familiar woman with sandy blonde hair tied in 4 ponytails as she walks down the road towards her. She is wearing mesh armor underneath a purple dress that is sleeveless, with a purple blouse over it, a purple sash around her waist, hand warmers, and leg guards with black ninja sandals. Ino clarified, being careful not to mention that she actually smelled her. "I am not, me and my team were already here when I sensed your chakra." It would undoubtedly sound strange coming from her, and it would be even stranger that she was aware of the scent of the Suna Kunoichi. "Out on a mission, I see?" she inquired. As her teammates and sensei emerged from the tea shop, Ino remarked, "Coming back from it actually." With a tone of annoyance, Shikamaru remarked, "Oh, it's you." With an equally irritated tone, she replied, "Nice to see you too, little boy." "Why are you out here, Tamari?" Asuma inquired. Tamari informed him, "I have something to discuss with Lady Tsunade." "Is there a problem at Suna?" Asuma inquired anxiously. "No, everything is fine," she reassured him. "I have some documents for her from the cage. Okay, now that we're all done with exchanging greetings, let's hurry back to the village," Ino groaned. With a sigh of exhaustion, Shikamaru muttered, "What a drag." Ino gave him a glare. "Are you rushing to meet your boyfriend?" The teasing words from Tamari made Ino flush. So what? I got one, at least." Ino stood up for what he believed in. "You also believe that I don't?" Tamari folded her arms over her impressive bust, which was slightly larger than Ino's, and asked. "Hey." Ino made fun of the poor sap who must be your boyfriend. "Oh yeah, well, your man must be very patient to deal with you," Tamari said, her eye twitching. Anger was starting to rise, so Ino gritted her teeth. "Come again?" Tamari squinted as they glared at one another, saying, "You heard me." Asuma stepped in between them and said, Whoa, calm down ladies." As Shikamaru returned to the tea house, he muttered, "Troublesome blondes. However, a powerful gust of wind abruptly lifted him into the air. What little boy was he? Temari inquired with increasing annoyance. Hey, stop it, Shikamaru said while swinging his arms in all directions. Before Shikamaru shot skyward and vanished into the distance, Temari uttered the words, "My pleasure." Before returning to the tea house to retrieve her belongings with her teammates, Ino sneered, "Serves him right." She then told Choji and Asuma, "Come on, we've already wasted enough time as it is," before handing them their belongings. "What about Shikamaru's belongings, Ino?" Choji inquired. Before responding, Ino grinned and said, "Don't worry, it will be right behind him." Shikamaru's backpack was thrown by her in the same direction as him. As they all headed back to the Leaf Village, Asuma whistled as he watched the backpack vanish into the distance and remarked, "The training with Lady Tsunade must be paying off." Leaf Village, Tower of Hokage. While reviewing the mission reports from the encounters with Shin, Lady Tsunade sat in her office and said, "This is absurd. How can Naruto, Ino, and Hinata use the fourth Hokage's fame jutsu, and how long have they known that jutsu? Is this what my grandfather's uncle, and Sarutobi Sensei had to deal with?" Tsunade pinched her nose in exasperation. "Who is it?" There was a knock on the door. From behind the door, Shizune said, "Lady Tsunade, I've brought Hiyashi Hyuga as you requested." As the door opened and Shizune and Hiyashi entered her office, Tsunade said, "Very well then, you may enter." "Lady Tsunade, you wanted to see me?" Hiyashi inquired. Tsunade pointed to the seat in front of her and said, "Yes, please have a seat." Hiyashi sat down and thanked Tsunade, saying, "Thank you milady." "Hinata, has she been acting strange lately, Hiyashi?" Getting right to the point, Tsunade asked. "Weird? Confused?" Hiyashi asked. "Yes, for instance, has her daily routine changed? Or has she changed the way she acts?" Tsunade inquired more carefully. "Well, now that you mention it, she was feeling unwell a couple of months back," Hiyashi said after giving it some thought. "What was the matter with her?" Tsunade asks as she switches to medic mode. Tsunade's eyes widened in shock as Hiyashi remarked, "She felt nauseous for a while and looked very pale. She was more violent if you can believe it." "Your daughter was acting aggressively?" Shizune questioned, not thinking that Hinata, who was kind and gentle, could be violent. Hiyashi rubbed his right wrist and said, "Yes, even the smallest issue seems to set her off." When Tsunade saw this, she inquired, "What happened?" Hiyashi winced as he remembered Hinata's menacing grin as she took hold of his wrist in a death grip. "Well, you see, during training my daughter got a little carried away and nearly broke my wrist. Also, her physical strength has increased." Tsunade asks, "Can you please explain on that?" Tsunade and Shizune were shocked when Hiyashi said, "Well, during a spar with Neji, Hinata punched the ground and made a massive crater like you did. Then Hinata asked to fight all of the Hyuga clan's head family and branch family." Hiyashi started. "What made Hinata ask that question?" Tsunade inquired. "I asked her that and she responded that she would tell me after she won." Hiyashi relayed to her. "What?" Shizune and Tsunade exclaimed in shock. Hiyashi remarked, "I was surprised myself when she said that." With her eyes narrowed, Tsunade explained, "That's a pretty bold thing to say. I thought it was a joke, but the look in her eyes and the tone of her voice suggested otherwise." Hiyashi stated to them. "What took place?" Tsunade inquired, curious. "She defeated all of us." "Everyone? Shocked at such a feat," Shizune said. "Yes, with very little effort, she defeated the others with ease." Hiyashi clarified, "She attacked each of us separately as if she were testing us, saving me, Neji, and Hanabi for last." "Are you being tested?" Tsunade inquired. "It was as if she wanted to prove a point which I didn't understand until she told us to attack her at once." Tsunade remarked, "That's insane. Hinata's behavior was definitely not like this." "We thought so too, but she insisted and we did attack her only to be easily repelled and she took us down quickly and easily," Hiyashi said. Tsunade asked, "What was the point she was trying to prove?" As Shizune and Tsunade gazed at Hiyashi in amazement. "She wanted to prove that she was stronger than all of us combined and could take us down anytime she wanted without hardly trying. She then kept her promise and told us the reason for this battle." Hiyashi stopped as he started to recall. Rewind. Hiyashi couldn't believe what his daughter had done. The gentle, kind, and timid girl he raised simply took down every member of the clan without hesitation or mercy. He looked up to see his daughter standing over him, her eyes so strong that he nearly felt afraid. Hinata was looking down at her defeated clan members who were dispersed throughout the training field, and groans of pain could be heard as her clan members tried to move. To Hiyashi's surprise, Hinata's voice did not waver as she said, "Father, I will now tell you the reason why I asked to fight you all. I did this to make clear where we all stand." What are you referring to? With trepidation, he asked. "I just made it clear that I am not anyone's puppet and whatever plans some of you may have for me should be considered crushed." Hinata continued in the same icy tone, "My life is for me to decide, am I understood? That you are all beneath me." Her words sent a chill through everyone. When she said that, everyone nodded rapidly. As Hiyashi gazed at his daughter in wonder, he couldn't help but smile as he said, "You've become strong, Hinata." Hinata's strength and confidence during her statement made him wonder that this was his daughter, and it made him think of his late wife, who was a true lioness when it came to protecting their daughters. Hinata softened her tone and said, "I thought I made that clear just now." He continued to smile as he said, "True, but I wanted to say it just to make it clear. I'm so very proud of you." As she extended her hand to her father, Hinata grinned and said, "Thank you, father." As his daughter assisted him in standing, Hiyashi took her hand. The flashback is over. When Hiyashi finished, Tsunade and Shizune gazed at his beaming face in surprise. "How long ago was this?" Tsunade inquired. He replied, "Probably a week ago. What else?" "Ah." The sound of branches snapping and a scream from outside startled everyone in the room, and Tsunade hurriedly got up from her chair to gaze out her window, asking, "What's going on out here?" She looks towards a nearby tree to see Shikamaru hanging from one of the branches. "Shikamaru." She interrupts herself when something else falls from the sky and strikes Shikamaru, releasing him from the branches and sending him crashing to the ground. "Shikamaru." Tsunade calls out his name in concern as she leaps from the window to land in front of him. Shikamaru is lying on his upper back with his legs lying against the tree facing up and a backpack on his face. "Are you doing well?" She gets on her knees and takes the backpack off his face, leaving an impression. Before he took the backpack from her and put it back on his face, Shikamaru looked up at Tsunade and muttered, "Troublesome." Tsunade was irritated by his actions, but before she could say anything, a number of shinobi showed up to investigate what had flown into the village. "Is everything okay, Lady Tsunade?" one of them inquired. Assuring them, Tsunade said, "Yes, nothing to worry about." "How about him, though?" another said, gesturing toward Shikamaru. She said, "It's okay, it's just Shikamaru," and everyone nodded in agreement before she vanished. As Shizune and Hiyashi made room for her, Tsunade jumped back up to her window and said, "Hiyashi, I think we should continue this discussion some other time." She had just gotten up and looked up at her window, where they were staring at her. Hiyashi concurred, "I understand, Lady Hokage. Also keep a close watch over Hinata in case she shows any more strange behavior." Tsunade stated to him. "Why are you so wary of her, milady, if I may ask?" Hiyashi queries. "What I'm about to tell you only myself, Shizune, Jiraiya, and Kakashi know." Tsunade gives him a serious look and says, "It's not just her." "What's happening?" Hiyashi inquired, disliking the gravity of the discussion. Hiyashi's eyes widened in surprise as Tsunade remarked, "Your daughter, Naruto, and Ino have someone who learned the 4th Hokage's famous jutsu, the Flying Thunder God technique." "Are you serious?" Hiyashi exploded. When Tsunade saw Hiyashi look down, she remarked, "Quite serious. How is this possible? How did Hinata discover such a sort? After technique from the 4th Hokage?" Hiyashi rubbed his forehead and asked no one in particular. "Hiyashi, you must never tell anyone else what I just told you. Have I been understood?" Tsunade sternly informed him. "Yes, Lady Hokage." Hiyashi nodded, still struggling to comprehend that his oldest daughter is proficient in the Flying Thunder God technique, but then he understood. "Lady Tsunade, the Hyuga main house made a seal to stop the branch house from spying on them with their Byakugan." Tsunade responds, "Yes, I am aware of that seal." Hiyashi informed her, "I think Hinata used it on herself." Tsunade said, not understanding Hiyashi's concern, "I fail to see the problem with that since she's allowed to use it on herself, I believe." Hinata opposed having the seals in her room, but we did it for her own benefit even though she would never use it because she sees it as an indication of mistrust between the main and branch houses. Therefore, it is unusual for her to voluntarily use it on herself, Hiyashi concluded. As Tsunade considered this new information, she said, I see, thank you for telling me this. Does Inoichi know about this, Lady Tsunade? Hiyashi queries. No, I haven't had an opportunity to speak with him yet. He's on a mission right now, she clarified. Hiyashi bowed and left the Hokage's office, saying, very well, I'll be sure to keep an eye on my daughter. Do you believe he handled it well? Shizune inquires. Tsunade sighs, perhaps. I wonder how Inoichi will take it. Meanwhile, Ino, Tamari, Choji, and Asuma have finally reached the village gate. Asuma said, okay, Ino, Choji, you two can go on home. I'll report to the Hokage. As soon as he finished, Ino took off. All right, see you two tomorrow, Ino hurriedly said, trailing a trail of dust in her wake. As she and Azuma made their way to the Hokage tower, Tamari remarked, she's probably in a hurry to get laid. Before long, they were both standing in front of the Hokage. How was the mission, Asuma? Tsunade inquired. As he gave Tsunade his mission report, Asuma replied, the mission went well, Lady Tsunade. As she accepted a scroll from Asuma, Tsunade remarked, that's great to hear. That will be all. After Asuma nodded and vanished in a cloud of smoke, Tsunade turned to Tamari and asked, Tamari, how was your trip? As she gave Tsunade some papers, Tamari replied, it was fine milady. As she took the documents from her and started to review their contents, Tsunade said, thank you. She then filed them away after stamping them with her unique ink stamp and saying, everything is all set. Tsunade informed Tamari, will you be going back to Suna now? Tamari informed her, I'll grab a bite to eat before leaving. Are you certain you don't want to return to Suna tomorrow? Traveling by yourself can be risky. Tsunade remarked, especially someone as important as you. Yes, I'm sure. I have something planned for tomorrow and I am fully capable of dealing with whatever comes my way. Tamari replied to Tsunade. I don't doubt that. Tsunade concurred, fully aware of Tamari's abilities. Before leaving the office, Tamari bowed and said, then I'll be seeing you soon milady. Tsunade grinned and shook her head, saying, youngsters these days. You know what they say, blondes have more fun. The voice behind her startled Tsunade, who spun her chair around and gave Jiraiya a fierce look. Baka, I've told you to stop doing that how many times? Before Tsunade gave him a slap on the head, Jiraiya gave him a sheepish smile and said, sorry, I couldn't help myself. Ow? For what purpose was that? I apologize, I was unable to resist. Tsunade mocked as Jiraiya rubbed his head. She crossed her arms under her impressive bosom and narrowed her eyes at Jiraiya. What did you discover? I checked all my sources but I was unable to find anything in regards to Shin. No one has ever heard of him until now, Jiraiya retorted, observing the gravity in her voice. Tsunade sighed and sat down, muttering in exasperation, great. It's as if he just came out of thin air. Jiraiya said, we just need to analyze the information we already have on him to find some kind of weakness. When Tsunade smiled knowingly, she said, well then I've got good news for you then. She continued to smile as she told him, we have someone that can not only go toe-to-toe with Shin but actually manage to beat him too. Who? Jiraiya leaned closer and asked. He was told by Tsunade, Hyuga Hinata. Daughter of Hiyashi. What? Jiraiya asked. Indeed, it appears that her clan tactics had a significant impact on him. Tsunade continued to smile as she explained, she's our best chance against him. I'd hate to wipe the smile off your beautiful face but after his defeat by her hands, Shin will probably come up with a strategy to fight her in case they meet again. Jiraiya clarified. Jiraiya instantly regretted saying anything when Tsunade's smile turned to a frown, but her smile returned as soon as she said, then we'll just have to come up with a strategy ourselves. The apartment of Naruto. I have to make it up to her somehow. Naruto closed his eyes and started to consider what he could do for Ino when his stomach began to growl. No use thinking on an empty stomach, time for some ramen. He got out of bed and made his way to the door, but as his hand was about to reach the handle, the door suddenly swung open, slamming him against the wall. Naruto sighed as he lay on his bed, arms behind his head, and staring at the ceiling, disappointed that he had not been able to see Ino and let her know he was okay. "Are you here, Naruto?" Ino called out as she entered Naruto's apartment, the door closing behind her to reveal a disoriented Naruto as he stumbles forward. Ino checked Naruto's room first. "Not in here," she muttered. "I noticed that his bed was disturbed." "He was here," she said excitedly as she searched the room for more signs while Naruto was stumbling around outside his bedroom. She went through his closet and found some extra clothes for herself because she occasionally stays over. She then closed his closet and started to head towards the bedroom door. On the other side, Naruto was leaning against the wall next to his bedroom door. The room was spinning and he was unable to think clearly. His bedroom door was open, but Ino couldn't see him because the door was in her line of sight. "I bet he's at Ichiraku." Ino sighs as she leaves his apartment, saying, "I'd better go home and drop off my stuff. God, I can sure use a shower." A stalker? They were such a pain. So Ino rolled her eyes and focused on his chakra, sensing something familiar about it. The stalker is from the Yamanaka clan. When Ino noticed the Yamanaka flower shop in the distance, she realized why a member of her own clan was following her. She sensed that her stalker had increased their distance from her, but as soon as she stepped inside, the stalker stopped, but she assumed that whoever it was wouldn't be gone for long. "I've returned home," Ino declared. Ino's mother greeted her daughter, saying, "Ino, welcome home." "Where is Daddy?" Mrs. Yamanaka informed her. "He went on a mission just after you left." As she made her way upstairs to her room, Ino remarked, "So it's just the two of us tonight then." Mrs. Yamanaka was about to respond when she noticed her daughter's worn-out expression. "Difficult mission?" She went into her room and shut the door, saying only, "No." After remembering that Naruto would be joining them for dinner, Mrs. Yamanaka calmed down and said, "I'm sure she'll cheer up when she sees Naruto." She then went to the kitchen to get ready. After entering her room, Ino shut the window curtains and looked around to make sure nothing was missing. She took a deep breath through her nose and exhaled, saying, "It smells the same, which means nobody has been in here." She then sat at the edge of her bed and concentrated on feeling her stalker's chakra, and sure enough, he was, albeit not by much, closer to her house. Time to see who this stalker is. She closed her eyes and began to focus. A man in an ambu mask and cloak is hiding in a tree outside. He was supposed to watch Ino Yamanaka and report anything out of the ordinary to Danzo. He has so far only noticed that she is searching for him in Naruto Uzumaki's apartment. He is staying far away from her home to avoid detection, which makes it hard to observe his target. However, he was unaware that he was being watched. "Why is a member of the Ambu Black Ops stalking me?" Ino grinned as she saw her stalker. In addition to her clan abilities being enhanced, she also gained a new power that allows her to see through plants. The ability to manipulate plants. Ino smirked before her eyes widened in surprise and she sat up. "Don't tell me I'm in heat and releasing strong pheromones?" she thought before opening her eyes and falling back on her bed. "Maybe I'm just that attractive." Her cheeks turned rosy, and her eyes had a distant look before she shook her head quickly. "Whoa there, don't get ahead of yourself," she said, getting out of bed and beginning to pace. "Great, I'm going to attract the whole male population of Konoha, and there's only one way to end this soon. I shouldn't be in heat because I just gave birth. I'm not sure how my reproductive cycle works now, though, because my body has changed since I became Naruto. Kun's mate." Ino said this out loud before pausing and clapping her hands together. "Okay, shower first, then I'll figure this out." She then went to the restroom. Naruto has recovered his senses and is back in his apartment. "What hit me? I'm going to be late for dinner at Ino's place," he thought as he looked at the clock on his wall. Naruto went to the bathroom and took a quick shower before brushing his teeth and heading out of his apartment. He makes one stop along the way and resumes his course with a box in hand. He makes it to the Yamanaka flower shop but hesitates to enter. "Should I even use this entrance? I guess there's no avoiding it then," he said loudly as he searched for another entrance to the Yamanaka flower shop and discovered it empty. "Hello, Mrs. Yamanaka?" he yelled. "Naruto, welcome, please follow me." Mrs. Yamanaka ushered him into the main house after he heard footsteps coming from the back and she came through a door while drying her hands on a towel. Naruto followed Mrs. Yamanaka into the main house and said, "Thank you for having me. I brought something to thank you for inviting me to dinner," he said. "This looks delicious. Thank you, Naruto. Mrs. Yamanaka turned to face Naruto as he held out a square box, and when she opened the top, she saw a delicious cake adorned with fruits. Ino's getting ready, so why don't you have a seat on the sofa? She said, heading to the kitchen to put the cake away. Before following instructions, Naruto sat on the couch for a few minutes, tapping his fingers against his leg. When he was tired of waiting, he got up and went to the kitchen. Oh, thank you. Is there anything I can do to help, Yamanaka? The offer pleasantly surprised Mrs. Yamanaka, who was busy chopping some vegetables, saying, Thank you for offering Naruto, but you don't have to. I want to, and besides it wouldn't feel right to have you do everything while I just sat on the couch doing nothing. Naruto countered. His sincerity moved Mrs. Yamanaka. Well, how can I say no when you put it that way? Before asking Naruto to set the dining room table, she gestured for him to assist her in chopping some vegetables. As the water ran down her curvy body, Ino continued to enjoy her shower, muttering, God, this feels so good. She wiped her hands across her impressive bust, removing the sweat and grime, but even after the soothing shower, she was still tense about the ambu stalker because she could still feel him at the same distance from her home. I wonder if the stalker will try something as I sleep? Ino thought as she turned off the knob and the water gradually stopped. She grabbed a towel and began drying herself off before wrapping it around herself. She then picked up her blow dryer that was hanging from a towel rack and started drying her hair. After her hair was dry, she grabbed the clothes she had brought and put on a purple spaghetti strap tank top that hung over her enormous breasts, a tie for her hair, and a pair of jeans shorts. Finally, she left the bathroom and went barefoot down the stairs to the dining room. Ino interrupted herself to say, Mom, is dinner ready ye? As she noticed Naruto arranging the table. Hey Ino. Chan, dinner will be ready soon, so could you wait a little bit longer please? Naruto said with a broad smile as he looked up to see Ino. Additionally, you look fantastic, by the way. He gave her a wink before continuing to set up the table. After standing motionless and gazing at Naruto with wide eyes, Ino approached him, took hold of his shoulders, and forced him to turn to face her. What the hell are you doing in my house? She gritted her teeth and asked. Naruto responded, Your mom invited me over for dinner. Why would mom invite Naruto to dinner unless? Naruto, did you stop by my family's flower shop? Ino blinked at this. Yep, I stopped by earlier to see you but you weren't there, and your mom told me you were on a mission and would be back later, so she invited me to dinner so that I can see you. Naruto clarified. What time did you return? Curious, she asked. He informed her, I got back a while ago. Why didn't you get in touch with me telepathically? Ino frowns. Why didn't you? He responded with a cunning smile that surprised Ino. Ino stumbled, trying to think of something to say, well When Ino noticed Naruto's smug expression, he folded his arms and scowled, asking, What's that look? Nothing, it's just that you make the cutest expression when you are confused. He then put his index finger under her chin and lifted her head a little. It makes me want to do this. He leaned his head down and planted a passionate kiss on her lips, causing Ino to open her eyes in shock and almost chastise him for kissing her in her home with her mother nearby, but she stopped when she felt the passion. In addition to her desire to see him, Ino gave in to the kiss, closing her eyes and putting her arms around his neck, pushing her fears of being caught in the ambu stalking her to the back of her mind. Naruto put his hands around her to caress her back before trailed down to her round butt and squeezed it, causing Ino to moan in the kiss. As their bodies began to grind against one another, they felt a rising heat inside of them. However, before they could move further, they heard a loud coughing sound, which caused their eyes to snap open. They turned to see Mrs. Yamanaka leaning against the kitchen door frame with her arms crossed and a knowing smile on her lips. She continued to smile and said, I hope I'm not interrupting anything. This isn't what it appears to be, Mom, Ino quickly said as she moved away from Naruto. Really? Because to me it looked like you were having an intense makeout session with Naruto, Mrs. Yamanaka said, raising an eyebrow as she observed the thin trail of saliva connecting her daughter's and Naruto's mouths when they parted. Ino, there's no reason to hide the fact that you and Naruto are clearly together, said Mrs. Yamanaka, who was still grinning as she watched her anxious daughter look everywhere but at her. She burst out laughing, which caused Ino and Naruto to look at her strangely. Well, this was the answer from Ino and Naruto. Naruto is a very nice and handsome young man. Great job in finding such a stud. She winked at him, making him blush. I'm perfectly fine with you dating him. Thank you, Ino remarked. I'm not sure if I should be pleased that her mother approves of Naruto or disgusted that her own mother flirted with her partner. Who can blame her? Naruto is very attractive, especially when he takes off his jacket. As she entered the kitchen, Mrs. Yamanaka said, "Why don't you two take a seat while I get the food?" After standing there for a while, Naruto and Ino both sighed. That was a relief, Ino said, her heart pounding quickly, when she felt two powerful arms encircle her waist and push her up against a hard chest. Ino shuddered as Naruto whispered sultrily in her ear, "I guess this means we can continue." "We can't, Baka." As the fire inside her was reignited, Ino told him. "Why not?" Naruto remarked as he inhaled the aroma of Ino's vanilla shampoo and nuzzled into her platinum blonde hair. When Ino heard her mother's footsteps coming, she forced herself out of Naruto's embrace and sat down as her mother entered the dining room. It took all of her willpower to resist giving in. As she carried a large serving tray full of food, Mrs. Yamanaka said, "I hope you have a healthy appetite, Naruto." Naruto went straight to her and grabbed the tray, saying, "Let me help you with this, Mrs. Yamanaka." Mrs. Yamanaka smiled. "You're such a gentleman, Naruto. Thank you." She helped him carry the tray to the table where she began filling their plates with food, and they both took their seats, with Mrs. Yamanaka at the head of the table and Naruto sitting next to Ino. "Itadakimasu." The three of them said this together before getting started. "Mrs. Yamanaka, the food is delicious." Naruto stuffed his face and complimented him. Mrs. Yamanaka said, "Thank you, Naruto, but remember that you helped make this." "No, I just chopped some vegetables." Naruto informed her, "You prepared this delicious meal." Despite the compliment, Mrs. Yamanaka remarked, "You're being too modest, Naruto." Although this was Naruto, who practically exuded happiness and had an infectious smile, Ino just stared at them in confusion because they were getting along so well and she had never seen her mother smile like that outside of her time spent alone with her father. To Ino's surprise, Mrs. Yamanaka said, "You're being a fully quiet, Ino." "W. What are you referring to?" Ino stumbled. "Now stop being shy and tell me how your relationship began." As she leaned on the table, Mrs. Yamanaka inquired, "You had a crush on Sasuke Uchiha for a long time." "Mom, it was a silly crush of a little girl," Ino moaned as she looked at her food and drummed her fingers on the table. "Right, Mom knew I liked Sasuke." She thought, then turned to face her mother. When she said, "I'm a kunoichi now, and I've moved on to bigger and better things," Ino's cheeks turned red. Mrs. Yamanaka saw this and grinned knowingly. "As for how we got started," she trailed off, looking at Naruto. Naruto put his hand on top of Ino's and grinned, saying, "It was over a bowl of ramen." Ino rolled her eyes and added, "Try several." However, she took no action to take Naruto's hand away. The couple's interaction made Mrs. Yamanaka laugh, saying, "That can't be everything I hope." Quite the opposite. Naruto-kun asked me to go to a well-known restaurant in Konoha after stuffing his face, Ino said. Mrs. Yamanaka narrowed her eyes at Ino, who was nervously scratching the back of her head with her free hand. "Wait a minute, I don't recall you going out." Ino admitted, "I may have snuck out." Mrs. Yamanaka said, huh. "Anyway, we had a wonderful evening and we started dating after that," Ino stated to her. "How much time ago was this?" Suspicious, Mrs. Yamanaka inquired. After exchanging quick glances, they turned back to face Mrs. Yamanaka. "A couple of months," Ino replied. "I assume that since you two have been dating for so long, nobody else is aware of you two except for me. Am I correct? How deep is your relationship, Ino?" she asks, and they nod. Mrs. Yamanaka takes a sip of her tea before putting her cup down. The question surprises Ino and Naruto. "W. Whatever do you mean, Mom?" While avoiding her mother's eyes, Ino managed to ask the question. "You know very well what I mean. You are both young. You have a body and a lot of women would kill to have, and Naruto is no doubt shredded underneath those clothes. So I know you two have probably been doing it like rabbits," she said in a furious tone. When her mother glared at her, Ino started to say, "There's no way." But then she swallowed nervously and said, "Yes, we did make love." She said they made love instead of saying they had sex. These two are serious about each other. Mrs. Yamanaka thought before speaking. I hope you two have been using protection. They told her they hadn't by avoiding eye contact, so she looked at her daughter to absorb what she had just said. Well, if you're not going to use protection, then hurry up and give me a grandchild already. Mrs. Yamanaka began to laugh as Ino and Naruto fell out of their chairs. Mom! With her face flushed from embarrassment and rage, Ino screamed. What? My age isn't decreasing. Before I die, I would like to see my grandchild, Mrs. Yamanaka informed her. It's not that old of you. As Naruto lifted her off the ground, Ino reminded her. Mrs. Yamanaka grinned broadly and said, Anyway, I approve of your relationship with Naruto. He's a very nice young man and I can tell he's crazy about you. Thanks, Mom. Before turning to face her friend's beaming face, Ino thanked her mother and smiled back. Both Mrs. Yamanaka and Naruto's smiles vanished when she told her daughter, but you're going to have to tell your father. Ino was terrified, but Naruto was more so because his face was as pale as a ghost. Right, I forgot about him. Who wants dessert now? Mrs. Yamanaka said this as she got up to go to the kitchen and get the cake Naruto had brought. With a moan, Ino falls to the table and says, God, that was so embarrassing. In an attempt to make her see the bright side, Naruto tells her, at least she approves of me going out with you. Oh, I see. A shiver went down Naruto's spine when Ino said, just wait till you meet my dad. If he finds out that you've been sleeping with me, then it's nice knowing you. He won't actually murder his grandchildren's father, will he? In a terrified whisper, Naruto said. As he settles into his chair, Ino gives him a wink and says, if he finds out about that then you'll wish he killed you stud. Eventually, Mrs. Yamanaka returned with Naruto's cake and 3 plates. She saw that Naruto was depressed and knew it right away. Cheer up, Naruto, I'm sure you'll make a good impression on my husband. She told him before setting the cake on the table and cutting a slice for each of them. As they savor the delicious cake, Mrs. Yamanaka kept asking them about their relationship, asking them questions like, does anybody else know? How were you able to keep your relationship a secret? Unfortunately, Naruto had to leave because it was getting late. Naruto thanked Ino's mother, saying, thank you for the food, Mrs. Yamanaka. I really had a great time meeting you. They both laughed as she said, oh, you're quite welcome, Naruto. Please feel free to come over anytime, just give me a heads up first. I'll walk you to the door, Ino said, putting her arms around Naruto's left arm and guiding him to the area of their house that housed the flower shop. She paused outside the door and turned to face her mate, telling him through telepathy, I'm being stalked by an Ambu Black Ops. Why would you be stalked by an Ambu member? Naruto pondered anxiously. Ino told him, I don't know, but the Ambu is a member of the Yamanaka clan. Do you know anyone? Did he ask? No, his chakra signature is unfamiliar to me. Ino considered asking his father if he had any information about a Yamanaka clan member in the Ambu. Before putting his arms around Ino and drawing her close, Naruto thought, good idea, I'll try asking Kakashi-sensei and Granny Tsunade if they know something. He reassured her, don't worry, we'll figure this out. I hope so, Ino said, resting her head on his chest without seeming overconfident. She raised her head to look at him as Naruto said his friend's name, Hey Ino. Chan. Naruto assured her, this guy doesn't know that we're on to him and that gives us the advantage, as long as we can stay 1 step ahead of him, if not 2 then he doesn't stand a chance. He said, way to look on the brighter side of things stud, and Ino smiled before putting her right hand up to stroke his cheek. They were so engrossed in their makeout session that they didn't hear the flower shop door open. Hey, it's what I do. Naruto replied, then lowered his head and planted a passionate kiss on Ino's lips, causing her to melt into the kiss as she ran her right hand through his blonde hair. Naruto then brought his left hand down to squeeze her butt, causing Ino to moan during the kiss, and he brought his right hand around to caress her stomach before moving up to her breast. Oh! As they looked at the shop's front door and saw that it was none other than Inoichi Yamanaka, Ino and Naruto immediately broke off their kiss. Daddy! Ino let out a gasp. Please tell me what Naruto is doing here and why he's holding onto your chest like that, Inoichi said. Hello, Ino. He couldn't help but notice the thin line of saliva that connected their mouths as they parted. Naruto's hand grabbed Ino's breast as they looked down, and they immediately parted ways. Mr. Naruto tried to explain to Yamanaka that it wasn't what he thought, but Inoichi didn't believe him. "Oh, really? Since it was obvious that you were exploiting my daughter," Inoichi arched an eyebrow. "No, I wouldn't ever exploit Ino-chan. I promise." Naruto gulped when Inoichi pulled out a kunai, despite Naruto's attempts to reassure him. "You lustful jerk is attempting to woo my daughter in order to have sex with her and conceive with you. Not while I'm watching." Inoichi lunged at Naruto and attempted to cut him with his kunai, but Naruto managed to jump out of the way. "Mister," as he ducked another kunai slash, Naruto said, "Please, Yamanaka, calm down. Hold still, you punk." Inoichi kept slashing at Naruto, who kept dodging. "Calm down, daddy, and let's discuss this," in an attempt to soothe her father, Ino said. "This bastard has to die, sweetie, so there's nothing to discuss." Inoichi made a well-known hand gesture while growling. When Ino saw the hand seal, her eyes widened in terror. "Daddy, don't." Jutsu mind destruction. Just as Naruto froze, Inoichi yelled, "Hey, what's happening? I am unable to move." Naruto was struggling to move and was in a panic. Inoichi pulled out another kunai and threw both to Naruto, who caught them, saying, "You're mine now, punk. I didn't instruct my body to do that, so hold on." With the pointed end of the kunais aimed at his body, Naruto uttered those words. "It's time for you to pass away because I now own your body." As Naruto's arms were ready to stab himself, Inoichi uttered those words. Jutsu mind destruction. Inoichi's eyes widened in surprise as Naruto's arms abruptly stopped and released the kunais. He then turned to face his daughter, who was using the same hand seal as him. "Ino, you." As she approached her partner and planted a kiss on his cheek, Ino interrupted her father, saying, "Naruto-kun, I'll see you tomorrow." "Ino. I would like to speak with you in the living room, daddy." Ino gave her father a death glare and gave an order. Inoichi rushed to the living room and uttered the terrified words, "Sure, sweetheart." As he hurried out of the Yamanaka flower shop, Naruto said, "I'll see you tomorrow, Ino-chan." Not wanting to risk Ino's wrath, he started to head home, but the wind picked up and he suddenly froze. "No way." He smiled broadly before vanishing. Naruto entered the Yamanaka flower shop and stayed until late in the evening before departing, according to the route Ambu, who was assigned to watch Ino from a considerable distance. What was the Jinchuriki doing at Inoichi's home? He said, "I'd better tell Lord Danzo about this," and then he vanished. Tamari, meanwhile, was already quite a distance from the village but still deep in the land of fire's forests. She started heading back to Suna as soon as she had eaten, but even though she had left while the sun was still up, it was already dark and she was still in the woods, so to speak. Perhaps I should have followed Lady Tsunade's advice and waited till tomorrow. Tamari realized, beginning to second guess her choice. I wonder if it's not too late to turn back. She thought out loud before she heard a noise coming from the bushes. Tamari summoned her battle fan and got into a battle stance. "Display your skills," she demanded as she waited for whatever it was to come out. She didn't have to wait long as Squirrel emerged from the bushes and stared at Tamari. She couldn't help but giggle. "I guess I'm a bit on edge," she said to no one as she turned around but collided with something hard. "Hey, what the—" Birds abruptly flew from the nearby trees as the sounds of tearing could be heard tearing through the forest. "Holy she!" Tamari couldn't finish as the creature let out a powerful roar before leaping at her. She took a step back and saw what she had bumped into, a monster. Tamari's eyes fluttered open as she lifted her head off the ground. What happened? The next morning, as the sun rose over the Konoha forest, there was a specific location where the trees and ground were covered in numerous cuts and pieces of torn clothing scattered around. A pair of ninja sandals lay on the floor, the starps torn in half. She raises her hand to rub her head and in doing so she feels something soft. What in the— She quickly rises from the ground into a sitting position and looks at her hands, which are covered in sandy blonde fur, and her nails have lengthened into claws. When did— Tamari starts thinking about what happened the night before, and as she slowly turns her head around, she notices that she has a long, fluffy tail that is the same color as the fur covering the rest of her body. She then notices the creature that attacked her, which has blonde fur on its back. A tick appears on her head as she clenches her right hand into a fist and strikes the creature on the side of his head, waking him up. What? Who? What? The fox-like creature scans the area frantically. Baka. Are you aware of what you did? Tamari glared at the fox and let out a shriek. Sorry, Tamari. Chan, but as soon as I caught your scent I couldn't resist. Naruto apologized to his mate while the fox nervously scratched his head. Before tearing my favorite outfit to pieces, couldn't you have waited or at least warned me? Tamari was obviously upset and yelled at him. I'm not the only guilty one here. I seem to recall how you couldn't wait any longer and transformed with removing her clothes, even knowing what would happen to them if they stayed on during the transformation. Naruto then smiled and leaned his face close to Tamari. This caused Tamari's face to heat up before he rubbed his muzzle against hers. Baka, after what you did to me last night, I'm going to have you massage me just for that, Tamari said in a matter-of-fact manner. Whispering, Naruto placed Tamari on the ground and gave her a massage. Your wish is my command. House Yamanaka. Inoichi was reading the newspaper on a couch in the living room while Mrs. Yamanaka was humming a tune while she made breakfast for her family. As he reached the next page, he sighed with exhaustion. He heard footsteps coming down the stairs and looked back to see his daughter. Inoichi said, "Good morning, Ino." Ino kissed her father's cheek and said, "Morning, Daddy." She then sat on a sofa across from her father. While Inoichi continued to read his newspaper and Ino rested her head on her right hand, they sat in silence until Ino finally spoke. "Dad?" Inoichi gave a little start, then lowered his newspaper to look at Ino. "Why? Yes, sweaty?" he inquired uneasily. Ino narrowed her eyes at her father, making him swallow, and said, "Do you remember what we discussed last night?" Inoichi reflected on what had happened the night before and asked himself, how can I forget? Rewind. With his wife and daughter standing in front of him, glaring at him with daggers, Inoichi is seated uneasily on the couch. Mrs. Yamanaka asked Ino, "How could you do something so rash, Inoichi?" after Ino told her what had happened. In response, Inoichi said, "I was protecting Ino." Mrs. Yamanaka got up and said, "By trying to kill Ino's boyfriend," which made Inoichi wince. Inoichi defended, he had his hands all over Ino. That punk has only one thing on his mind. Ino yelled, "Dad," at her dad. Naruto-kun isn't like that. Inoichi said, "How can you be sure?" with more volume. "He tells you he isn't like that, getting you to let down your guard with sweet talk or even make it so you want to do it." Ino gives her father a deadpan look after blinking. "Dad, this is Naruto we're talking about. He can't hide anything from me and I do admit that he does sweet talk me." Inoichi exclaimed, "See," before Ino motioned for him to wait by holding up her hand in front of him. "But, it's something normal couples do. You and Mom do it," Ino replied. Inoichi clarified, "That's because your mother and I are married. So if I married Naruto-kun then you'll be okay with him?" replied Ino. Inoichi got up and yelled, "No," instead. Mrs. Yamanaka glared at her husband and yelled his name, Inoichi. Inoichi sat back on the couch. As she pinched the bridge of her nose, she remarked, "Honestly, you're acting just like my father." Feeling insulted, Inoichi exclaimed, "I am nothing like him." "What do you mean, Mom?" Ino inquired inquisitively. Mrs. Yamanaka grinned as she recalled how terrified she was of her father Inoichi. "When your father and I started dating, my father gave him the 3rd degree. He told him the same thing your father told Naruto." Ino groaned as Inoichi said, "Oh come on, he was being unreasonable. I would never do anything you didn't want to." Ino countered, "That's exactly what I've been telling you about Naruto. He would never do anything that I wouldn't want to." Her father started to explain, but she interrupted him. "He isn't hiding anything from me, as if he can. I'm a Yamanaka, remember?" "Ino!" exclaimed Inoichi. "What?" inquired Ino. "Naruto-kun insisted that I scan his mind. He wanted to prove to me that he was serious about us." Inoichi suddenly felt nervous and asked, "How serious are we talking about?" Ino told him gravely, "Real serious." When Inoichi gritted his teeth and tightened his hold on the sofa's armrests, his wife grinned. She winked at Ino and said, "You knew this day would come, when Ino would find her handsome prince." Still, Inoichi's doubts persisted. "If you're still having doubts, then why don't we invite Naruto over for dinner again? You'll see for yourself what a nice young man he is," suggested Mrs. Yamanaka. After giving it some thought, Inoichi finally agreed. Before talking about the specifics of the dinner, Ino and her mother applauded and said, Okay, I'll give him a chance. The flashback is over. Inoichi inquired, so when are you going to invite him? Today I'll ask if he wants to come over for dinner again tomorrow and that you'll be joining us, Ino clarified. Inoichi smirked and asked, what if he's too scared to come? Before thinking, Ino reassured him, he'll come, he's more afraid of me. When Mrs. Yamanaka exclaimed, breakfast is ready, from the kitchen, Ino and Inoichi got up and went to the kitchen. In the meantime, the Kazekage is reviewing mission reports in his office in Sanagakure. The Akatsuki have not been sighted, and Konoha has sent him a message asking him to keep an eye out for a man named Shin who is traveling with Sasuke. Gazing out of his office window, Gaara sighed. The village appeared serene this morning. A knock on the door was heard. Yes, it's Kankuro. Gaara said, come in. Kankuro appeared as the door to his office opened. Kankuro said, good morning, Gaara, to his younger brother. Kankuro sat down in front of Gaara's desk, looked at the stack of papers there, and whistled as Gaara returned the greeting, morning. Keeping busy, I see. Gaara's monotoned question, did you just come in here to tell me that? Made Kankuro uneasy. Kankuro honestly stated, N.No, I came by to ask for a mission. Gaara then took a piece of paper from the pile of missions. There's one, but you have to wait till Tamari gets back first. Kankuro raised an eyebrow and asked, why? Gaara gave a straightforward response. Because you'll be escorting one of our citizens to Konoha. And why would I have to wait for Tamari to do a simple mission like that? Kankuro inquired. Kankuro's mouth fell open as Gaara said, to make sure you don't make a fool of yourself during this simple mission. Oh come on. Is this about what happened when? Kankuro. Gaara interrupted his elder brother and glared at him, making Kankuro turn pale. It is precisely that reason why she'll accompany you. Kankuro sank into his chair without objecting. Oh. Okay, so who are we escorting? Gaara gave Kankuro a small smile, which made him say, well, it's... The shinobi lookouts at the village wall, meanwhile, noticed something off in the distance. One of the shinobi on lookout gestured toward a distant object and asked, what's that other there? Using binoculars, another sand shinobi saw what appeared to be a blonde wearing an orange and black tracksuit as they crossed the desert toward the village entrance. He noticed the Suna headband on the person's forehead and deduced that the person was a woman based on her curves, but he was unable to get a good look at her face because she had her head down and the collar of her jacket covered the lower portion of her face. As he and his fellow shinobi went to meet her at the entrance, he remarked, I think it's one of our shinobi. When she finally arrived, both shinobi's eyes widened in surprise as they recognized the woman. Lady Tamari. She stopped in front of them, her head still lowered so that the jacket collar covered her mouth. She was clearly flushed as she watched the two shinobi gaze at her, their mouths wide open. She yelled, what? Which made them both start a little. Nothing, it's just... He followed his gaze down her body, the tracksuit only highlighting her amazing curves as evidence that his and his fellow shinobi's gazes were fixed on Tamari's enormous bust, which caused the jacket to stretch. Tamari frowned when she noticed where they were focused. Hey, my eyes are up her. Both shinobi instantly stood up and frightenedly met Tamari's eyes. His gaze returned to her chest, and he trailed off, Sorry ma'am, it's just... Tamari rolled her eyes and walked away from them, muttering, men. The two shinobi were drawn to her chubby butt as she was leaving. Tamari, however, sensed their gazes and knew quite well what they were staring at. She flicked her wrist, and a powerful gust of wind lifted the two shinobi and launched them into the air. Before anyone else could see her, Tamari leapt across the rooftops to her apartment to change before the other shinobi on guard could avoid her wrath. After making it to her apartment, she leaned against the door and exhaled a sigh of relief as she swiftly opened and shut the door behind her. She was walking to her room when she abruptly stopped. She slowly turned her head to the left and saw Kankuro sitting on her couch, mid-bite, holding a sandwich. He stood up and pointed a finger at Tamari, his eyes wide as he absorbed her appearance. Kankuro demanded, those clothes, what are you doing wearing his clothes? This was the last thing Tamari needed, and she grimaced. Do you really want to know? After a brief pause, Kankuro gave her a disdainful expression. No, I don't. Tamari proceeded to her room, but Kankuro spoke as soon as her hand touched the knob. Why? Tamari asked without looking back. Why what? When Kankuro said, "You know what I mean, Tamari sighed. "No, not really. You have to be more specific." Kankuro cried out, "You're going to got live in Konoha with that punk." "So?" she inquired. Kankuro shouted, "So? You didn't even tell me about this?" Tamari turned around this time and gave her younger brother a fierce look. "Gee, I wonder why?" As before, Tamari's glare caused Kankuro to shrink. Rewind on his way to his sister's apartment, Kankuro decided to crash there and irritate her like he used to after returning from a mission. The bags under her eyes suggested that his sister wasn't getting enough sleep, which made her grumpy and easily agitated. Lately, she has been busier than usual. When Kankuro remembered how Tamari had thrown him out of her window after he had unintentionally woken her one morning and the fire in her eyes had burned his soul, he shuddered. As he saw her apartment, he told himself, better be extra careful this time. As he reached the door of Tamari's apartment after climbing the stairs, he produced an extra key and unlocked it. He walked stealthily to the kitchen after shutting the door, but he stumbled forward after stumbling over something. Oh crap! Kankuro scurried to his feet, braced himself for his sister's fury, but he was perplexed when the room remained silent. He looked down at the thing that had tripped him and picked it up, thinking, perhaps she's not here. What is? He realized instantly that he was holding Tamari's underwear. Dear God! He instantly released his grip and took his hand. He then glanced around the room, finding clothing strewn all over the place. A male owned a few of them. No way! Unbelievably, Kankuro glanced at Tamari's room door and approached it cautiously, his heart pounding as he edged closer. It was silent until he heard the bed creak, then footsteps, and finally the sound of running water. He pressed his ear against the door and listened intently. After swallowing the lump in his throat, Kankuro cautiously opens the door. Peering inside, he sees a strand of blonde hair peeking out from Tamari's bed's covers. Kankuro stared at the open door to Tamari's private bathroom, where steam was leaking out, and said, Tamari's still sleeping, which means the bastard who slept with her is in the shower. He gritted his teeth and crept inside, being cautious not to wake Tamari as he crawled on the floor. Once inside, he crept to the shower stall and took out a kunai. He then grabbed the shower curtains and yanked them aside. Surprise! He exclaimed before his eyes widened at the sight of his sister in the shower, not the man he had anticipated seeing. Tamari? When Tamari heard her name, she froze and turned to look at her brother. Her hands stopped lathering her hair, and she gazed at Kankuro with wide eyes. For a few seconds, neither of them moved until Kankuro spoke. His eyes follow her body, and his face flushes. But if you're here then, he says. Tamari, regrettably for him, notices this and her face flushes as well, but not out of embarrassment. Baka? Tamari threw Kankuro a punch to the face, causing him to fly back and become embedded in her bathroom wall. Tamari-chan, are you okay? He asked anxiously as he was at her side, wrapping his arms around her wet, nude body. The crash immediately woke Naruto up, and he leapt out of Tamari's bed, still naked, and rushed to the bathroom. I'm fine. She turns to face Kankuro, who has a swollen, seemingly unconscious right side of his face. She puts her arms around Naruto and rests her head on his chest, saying, but I think we have to come clean now. The flashback is over. With Gaara, Tamari, and Naruto present, Kankuro rubbed his cheek absently before waking up in the hospital wearing a full body cast. Kankuro wanted to argue, but his jaw was broken, so he had to keep quiet after the two blondes told him about their relationship and that it was a secret. But you could have at least told me over dinner or something instead of finding out like this. Tamari crossed her arms and said, the last time I tried that, you made a complete ass of yourself. Remember? Recalling that Tamari had invited him and Gaara to join her and Naruto for dinner at her favorite restaurant, Kankuro winced. She introduced Naruto to her brothers in a proper manner during what was supposed to be a laid-back dinner, and Gaara fully supported their relationship because he knew Naruto would make Tamari happy. However, Kankuro was apprehensive and questioned Naruto about his ability to fulfill Tamari's dreams and make her happy. Although Naruto acknowledged that he is not the smartest person and can be very stubborn, he will stop at nothing to fulfill Tamari's dreams and guarantee her happiness forever. Tamari grinned broadly at this, but Kankuro went on to say that Naruto is putting Tamari's safety at risk because of what he has imprisoned inside of him. Kankuro told him that he was well aware of that and had prepared for it, so he was taken aback when Naruto simply grinned. When Kankuro pressed for more information, Naruto nervously scratched the back of his head and assured him that Temari would know his plan and be prepared to alter it because she wouldn't like it. Then, speaking louder, Kankuro told Naruto that there couldn't be any secrets between them if he wanted to date Temari. His outburst was attracting attention from the other customers, so Temari had had enough and grabbed Kankuro's ear, pulling it high into the air until Kankuro's feet were hanging in midair. He then chastised Naruto, saying that if he wasn't honest with his sister about his plan, then who knows what other secrets he's keeping from her. Temari's hold was too tight for Kankuro, who was in excruciating pain as he attempted to pry his ear free. The other patrons avoided making eye contact with her lest they provoke her anger. She walked to the restaurant's entrance and threw him out before cleaning her hands and returning to her seat. Kankuro clarified, "I was making sure he wasn't taking advantage of you." Kankuro was about to object when Temari said, "Kankuro, Naruto would never take advantage of me. And if he did, do you think he would still be alive?" Temari was correct. Kankuro swallowed. "Why, you have a point there. Anyone who dared to cross her didn't live very long." Temari went into her bedroom and shut the door behind her, saying, "Good. Now if you don't mind, I'm going to go take a shower, then we'll start packing my things." After standing there and gazing at Temari's bedroom door, Kankuro sat down again on the couch. As Temari leaned against the door of her room, she heard Kankuro sighing and sitting on her couch. Before a mental picture of her kids materialized, Temari muttered, "He's still having trouble accepting our relationship." Before taking a shower, she went to her closet to select an extra outfit. "I wonder how he'll react when meeting his niece and nephew," she asked herself. Sakura and Ino are standing facing each other after completing their warm-up exercise back in Konoha. Tsunade crossed her arms beneath her chest and stood on the side. "All right. The first to land a hit on the other wins. Are you two ready?" "Yes." Both of the young kunoichis exclaimed simultaneously. Tsunade said, "Then you may begin." At that moment, Ino started swerving through hand signals. She yelled, "Water style! Liquid bullets!" and spat out multiple water spheres at Sakura. To avoid it, Sakura leaps into the air. She then pulls a kunai from her ninja pouch and throws it at Ino, but it lands in front of her. Before taking a close look at the kunai and observing the explosive tag attached to it, Ino teasingly said, "Your aim is off, forehead." The explosive tag exploded, enveloping Ino in a cloud of black smoke. Knowing that Ino wouldn't lose this easily, Sakura's senses were on high alert as she landed a few feet away from the smoke. But then she heard a cough, and her mouth fell open when the smoke cleared and she saw an Ino coughing. "Are you kidding me?" With a sly smile, Ino said, "You got me, forehead." "What the hell, Ino?" Sakura exclaimed, still in disbelief at how easily she had won. Ino smugly told her, "Be careful, your forehead, because a bird might build a nest in your mouth." Sakura was about to say something when a chill went up her spine, so she shut her mouth and glared at her best friend. "What was?" Sakura jumped back as a hand shot up from the ground as she felt a sudden vibration beneath her feet. Another hand appeared from the ground and then pulled the rest of its body up to reveal Ino. Ino's voice could be heard saying, "Almost had you there, forehead." As she watched the real Ino get up and walk away, Sakura muttered, "A shadow clone." She turned back to her clone, who gave her a nod before charging at her when she raised her arms in front of her. All three of them turned to face Tsunade as she started to stop Ino's clone. By the way, blocking counts as a hit, so for example if Sakura were to block Ino's punches with any part of her body, then Ino is the victor. "What?" exclaimed Sakura, stunned. With a smile, Tsunade asked, "Is there a problem, Sakura?" Sakura knew what Tsunade was doing. She was testing her ability to adapt to the situation. "No, milady," Sakura said before adjusting her battle stance. "Then let's continue," the real Ino said, and she made a cross hand seal and summoned 5 shadow clones. "Get ready, forehead," all of the Inos said in unison. "Oh come on," Sakura whined as all of Ino's shadow clones charged at her. Sakura gathered chakra into her right fist and punched the ground, shattering the field. Ino's clones fell into the fissures and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Ino steadied herself before weaving through hand signs. "Earth style. Earth column." She slammed her palms on the ground and numerous pillars made of earth shot up from the fissures and surrounded Sakura. "This won't hold me," Sakura said as prepared to punch the wall of pillars but stopped when she felt the same shiver from before run up her spine. She jumped back as several pillars erupted from the ground in front of her. "Almost had you again," Ino said from atop one of the pillars surrounding Sakura. "You're not getting me that easily, Ino.Pig." Sakura mocked as she surveyed her surroundings. She wasn't sure if the Ino that was on top of the wall was a shadow clone. Ino was smiling smugly as if she already had this wand. Sakura gritted her teeth and focused her chakra on her right hand before slamming her fist on the ground. As expected, Ino jumped into the air as the columns collapsed. Sakura grabbed a large rock about half her size and hurled it at Ino. Unable to avoid it, Ino took the hit but immediately turned to smoke. A shadow clone. Sakura thought as she scanned the area for Ino when suddenly mud started pouring out of the cracks in the ground. Reacting quickly, Sakura jumped around the rising mud into new ground. She watched as the mud rose into the air and took on the form of Ino. "Since when can Ino do this?" Sakura said in both shock and awe as the giant mud Ino raised its fist and brought it down on top of Sakura, but she jumped back to avoid it. However, as the giant fist collided with the ground, a giant wave of mud formed around the impact point and spread outwards. "Oh no!" Sakura thought as the giant wave closed in on her and cast a shadow over her. Sakura gathered chakra to both her hands and clapped them in front of her, creating a shockwave that dispersed the wave of mud. The mud giant raised its hand and Sakura prepared to counter when she felt the same shiver again. She ducked down just as a ball of water rushed above her and hit the giant mud Ino. "Missed again?" Ino whispered as she was hidden between two pillars. She watched Sakura attack the shadow clone that launched the water jutsu. Ino closed her eyes and focused on sensing Sakura's chakra. Nothing was out of the ordinary except that her reserves are running low. But then she sensed it. As Sakura's reserves are being depleted, she was beginning to draw on another source. It wasn't much, but Ino knew what this chakra was. Naruto. She thought as she remembered how when she and Naruto shared their first kiss, they were both covered in the nine-tailed fox's chakra and some of it seeped into her body. So Naruto.Kun has begun his courtship of forehead. She whispered before making a familiar hand sign. "I guess I better let her know who's the dominant vixen." Mind transfer jutsu. Sakura suddenly stopped and Ino's shadow clone disappeared. IWI. Sakura was about to say when her eyes widened in shock. This is a shadow clone, she thought before hearing a crumbling noise and turned to the direction of her body to see Sakura looking down at her body. Her left hand extended out as she moved one of the columns. "I win, Ino.Pig." Sakura grinned victoriously as she leaned down to touch Ino when Ino's body moved and bit her hand. "Ah, son of a..." Sakura pried her hand out of Ino's mouth and held it close. "I thought you couldn't move?" She looked to see that Ino's body was covered in a yellow outline. "What the?" "I believe it's my win forehead." Sakura's shadow clone walked up behind her with her eyes glowing yellow. She undid her jutsu and disappeared in a puff of smoke. "Really, pig? Biting my hand?" Sakura said while healing her hand. "Oh come on, I didn't bite you that hard, did I?" Ino asked while standing up. She tasted something odd. I see you're using the strawberry lotion I lend you," she said as she grimaced at the taste. "Doesn't taste like strawberries though." Of course the taste was much worse since her taste buds are now more sensitive. Sakura finished healing her hand and watched Ino. "How did Ino do that? I didn't think she was able to use her clan techniques while possessing someone's body," she thought as she heard footsteps approaching. "Well done, you two," Tsunade said as she approached them. "I see you two made good use of the shadow clone technique." And Sakura looked at Tsunade's smiling face. "Well done in maintaining your clone long enough to trap Ino, but it looks like she had a trick up her sleeve." She complimented but took note of the ability Ino used. She would have to ask Inoichi about it when she told him about Ino. "Thank you, milady, I was careless." Sakura acknowledged her mistake, disappointment clear on her face. Ino saw this and smiled. Still a sore, looser forehead, she mocked, which caused Sakura to glare at her, but Ino just shrugged. "Hey, it's true, I've always lost to you, and sure I complained, but I kept training and improving on my shortcomings." Ino grinned as an idea formed in her head. "I also had Naruto as my training partner." This caught Sakura by surprise. "You trained with Naruto?" "Yep, he helps me improve my taijutsu, ninjutsu, and I help him improve his book smarts." Ino tells her. I'm surprised you managed to get him to sit still, Sakura said, a smile forming along the corners of her lips. Ino rolled her eyes. It wasn't easy, believe me, but we managed to make it work. Ino made a deal with Naruto that if he learned the academy basics, again, by the end of the week, then she'll reward him by being his personal maid for a day. That definitely motivated him, and he mastered the academy basics in under 3 days. So Ino had to keep her word and be Naruto's maid for an entire day, but Naruto as always surprised her, for when she entered his apartment he was dressed in a tight white dress shirt that showed off his muscular upper body, navy blue dress pants and white socks. He was reading a scroll and looking very professional. He then looked up to her and smiled. The way he smiled caused Ino to shudder. He was definitely playing the part of master perfectly. Ino went to cook breakfast for him but was surprised when he insisted he help her make it. It didn't end there. They ate breakfast together, although Ino was sitting on his lap, and they fed each other. They washed the dishes together, cleaned the house together. It wasn't what was supposed to happen. Ino assumed that she would be the one to service Naruto, but leave it to Naruto to not do anything by the book. It wasn't until Naruto wanted to take a bath that Ino's heart started pounding. As Ino went to prepare him a bath, she kept thinking if Naruto was going to ask her to join him or ask her to wash his back. It hasn't been that long since she and Naruto made love for the first time, and even less time when Temari and Hinata joined them. So the thought of being intimate with her mate and just being the two of them made her nervous, but her more primal urges are overriding her nervousness, and she feels like she might pounce on Naruto the instant he steps into the bathroom. But when Naruto walked in, he was fully dressed, and just when Ino thought she was going to be asked to undress him, Naruto said that he'll undress himself. However, the way he teased Ino as he undressed, slowly making Ino feel very hot and turned on as she watched Naruto's amazing body be on display before her. When he was finished, Ino was panting and sweat ran down her forehead as she was struggling to control herself, but the next words Naruto spoke sealed the deal. Don't you want to get out of those clothes if you're feeling uncomfortable, Ino? Chan. That was it for Ino. She practically tore off the maid outfit and tackled Naruto. Oh god, you didn't. Sakura's shriek brought Ino back to reality as she noticed Sakura look at her aghast and Tsunade smirking. What? You gave yourself to Naruto? Sakura shouted. What? Ino shrieked. Oh my Ino, is that the true reason you've been different lately? You've finally blossomed into a woman. Tsunade joked, which caused Ino's face to turn red. Milady. Ino was mortified that even Tsunade assumed she gave herself to Naruto, which was true. I can't believe you would sleep with Naruto of all people so easily, Sakura said. Wait, you think I'm that easy? Ino was disgusted that Sakura would think she would open her legs to anyone. Well, with that body of yours you must be getting some right, Tsunade teased. Milady, I don't need to hear that from you of all people, Ino shouted at Tsunade, which caused her to laugh. So how good in bed is Naruto? Is he a gently or very passionate lover? Tsunade continued to tease, which caused Ino's already red face to become even redder. Oh, lighten up, Ino, there's nothing to be embarrassed. She wrapped her arm around Ino's shoulder. It's perfectly fine to engage in a little fun every now and then. I'm guessing with a partner like Naruto he must keep you up all night, am I right? Ino gritted her teeth and gently removed Tsunade's arm. Milady, if we're done with today's training, then I should go meet up with my team. Don't be like that, Ino. Come on, spill the details. A vixen like you must drive Naruto wild. Tsunade said, choosing her words carefully, and gauged Ino's reaction. As expected, she watched Ino stiffen a bit before speaking. Milady, is the training over? She said monotone. Tsunade frowned at her tone. Yes, you did win. But first let me examine you to make sure you're okay. If this is some ploy to grope me, I swear. Ino threatened as Tsunade's hands glowed green and checked her body. You have nothing I already have, Tsunade said as she placed her hands over Ino's stomach and stopped. What's the matter? Ino asked nervously, fearing that Tsunade may have found out about her giving birth. Your stomach is so toned, Tsunade complimented, causing Ino to faceplant. I thought I said no feeling me up? Ino shouted angrily. I'm just noting what's obvious, Tsunade defended as she finished inspecting Ino. Well, off you go, don't want to keep your teammates waiting. Ino raised an eyebrow at how Tsunade said teammates but shrugged. As she and Sakura left, Tsunade stood there for a few moments in thought before disappearing in a puff of smoke and reappearing in her office. She sat on her chair and let out a loud sigh. Ino's body is suddenly different, and I don't just mean physically. Tsunade rubbed her forehead before looking at her paperwork for today. I need to speak with Inoichi while I have the chance. In another part of the village, Kakashi was reading his book when he heard his name being called. Kakashi. Sensei. He looked up from his book to see Naruto jogging towards him. Naruto, what can I do for you? Kakashi asked. He knew Naruto always asks him for extra training. Sensei, you were an Anbu before, right? Naruto asks. Yes. Why do you ask? Asked Kakashi suspiciously. Do you know any Anbu that are from the Yamanaka clan? Naruto asked, which surprised Kakashi. Why would you want to know that? Kakashi asked as Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. Well. Naruto looked at Kakashi and knew that whatever excuse he made to cover his real reason wouldn't work with Kakashi. But he tried anyway. I'm just curious to know if anyone from even great clans can join, and I've been wanting to ask you this since before I left on my training. Kakashi raised an eyebrow but decided to play along. No, I don't think there are any members of the Yamanaka in the Anbu Corps since I was last in the Anbu Corps. He answered, but he can think of another group that would have a member of the Yamanaka clan. Naruto thought for a moment before speaking. What about Root? I guess they would have someone from the Yamanaka clan. Kakashi answered calmly, but red flags were being raised. Is there anything else? No, I think that's all I wanted to ask, thanks sensei. Naruto thanked Kakashi as he turned around and walked away from him. Kakashi sighed before closing his book. So much for catching up on my reading. He then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Back at the Hokage Tower, Tsunade was sitting on her chair staring at a shocked Inoichi. Are you serious, milady? Inoichi asked, not certain if what he heard is true. I'm afraid so, Inoichi. Tsunade said. But how can Ino use the fourth Hokage's jutsu? His eyes widened as he realized something. Naruto, it must have been Naruto who taught her. Tsunade blinked. She didn't tell him about Naruto yet. How do you fugure? I know for a fact that Naruto is the fourth son and only he could have possibly taught Ino that jutsu. But how did he learn it and why teach Ino? Hiyashi asked out loud, knowing that Tsunade has activated the special seals on the room to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. That's what we're trying to figure out, she said, causing Inoichi to blink. We? Inoichi said, confused. Tsunade then proceeded to tell him the rest, and Inoichi was at a loss for words. Hinata too, just what is going on between them? His mind began to think of what those three were up to, and one of those thoughts involved a certain activity that caused him to shake his head. Inoichi, has Ino been acting odd recently, or is there a change in her behavior? Tsunade asked and waited for Inoichi to answer. Inoichi thought for a bit before answering. Well, she's dating Naruto, before she wouldn't even consider him and thought he was annoying. Tsunade's eyes widened before she smiled. So it's true, she whispered, but Inoichi heard. You knew, milady? Inoichi asked. Not exactly. Ino and Sakura were discussing their training when the subject of Naruto came up. I teased Ino about it, but I never would have guessed it was true. Way to go, brat. Tsunade gushed. Milady? Inoichi spoke, gaining Tsunade's attention. Oh right, sorry about that. Tsunade apologized, her cheeks turning red. Inoichi, I need you to keep a close eye on Ino in case she does anything else that's out of character for her. Yes, milady. Inoichi agreed as he stood up and headed for the door while Tsunade deactivated the special seals. As soon as Inoichi opened the door, Kakashi was on the other side about to knock. Oh, Inoichi. Kakashi said as he looked behind him to Tsunade, anticipating what he's about to say. She nodded. So Lady Tsunade has told you the situation. Good, because I believe it just got more complicated. What do you mean? Tsunade asked as Kakashi closed the door and she immediately reactivated the special seals. Well, Naruto came to ask me if there were any members of the Yamanaka clan in the Anbu Corps. Kakashi started and noticed Inoichi's eyes widen. Tsunade gritted her teeth. So that old war Hulk has caught wind of what's going on, eh? Inoichi, do you know who it might be? The person that comes to mind is Fu Yamanaka. Inoichi told them as he recalled that during breakfast Ino asked him the same thing. I believe he's spying on Ino. And she managed to discover him? That's pretty impressive. Kakashi praised Inoichi's daughter. We must make sure Danzo doesn't find out anything more. Since Naruto and Ino are aware of Fu, it'll be safe to assume they'll be extra cautious, which makes it a lot harder for us to find out what's going on between them. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose in irritation. The next thing she's about to say might be hard for Inoichi to take. Inoichi. Yes, milady? When I was training with Ino and Sakura, I managed to scan Ino's body with my medical jutsu and well. Tsunade scratched the back of her head nervously. What is it? Is Ino okay? Inoichi asked worriedly. Ino's fine, it's just. Her body is producing breast milk. Tsunade said and awaited Inoichi's reaction. Inoichi took in Tsunade's words, and then an image of a nude Ino and Naruto flashed in his mind. Naruto was smiling evilly as he looked down at a smiling Ino whose back was to him and his arms wrapped around her with his hands resting on her pregnant stomach, his face turning bright red as his expression was emotionless. He then took a deep breath and exhaled, his face returning to normal. Excuse me for a moment, he said as he closed his eyes and started to concentrate. Soon the image of walking down the village appeared in his mind as he was seeing through someone's eyes. He saw Shikamaru, Choji and Asuma waving, and soon the person he was seeing through picked up their pace. The person was talking with them until the vision changed to seeing an Anbu hidden among the shadows. Fu, Inoichi thought before realizing his mistake. Suddenly the image was gone and he found himself in a dark void. What are you doing, Daddy? Ino's voice echoed around him. Ino, I can explain, Inoichi said as a giant Ino appeared in front of him. I thought I told you to not use the Yamanaka clan's mind link to spy on me? The giant Ino said angrily as she raised her hand. There's a good reason for this, sweetie. Inoichi tried to explain, but his daughter was having none of it. She brought her hand down on top of him, but just before she crushed him, an image of two kids flashed in their minds, calling out to someone. Ga! Inoichi fell back and taking his seat with him. Inoichi. Tsunade calls out his name as she stands from her seat. I'm okay, milady. Inoichi assures her as he stands up. What happened? Kakashi asks. I linked with Ino's mind to secretly see what she was doing through her eyes, but then I saw Fu spying on her through the point of view of something, and that's when Ino caught me. Inoichi explained as he tried to wrap his mind around what else he saw and felt. Also, just before Ino expelled me from her mind, I saw an image of two baby foxes and they were calling out for something. Tsunade and Kakashi glanced at each other before looking back at Inoichi. Inoichi, I think for now you shouldn't try to read Ino's thoughts. But you could read the thoughts of another, she said, gaining Inoichi's attention. What do you mean, milady? Inoichi asked as Tsunade smiled. Meanwhile, Ino was walking calmly through the village. Her sensei had given them the day off and she decided to go find Naruto. In truth, she wanted to go to her kits since they called for her, but with her being watched she couldn't sneak out and she can't talk to Naruto telepathically since her father might be listening despite her warning. She groaned internally. No doubt Dad would want to have a word with me later. She spotted a tuft of blonde spiky hair among the crowd and made her way towards it. Sure enough, it was Naruto and he seemed to be talking to Sakura. Naruto, forehead. Both turned around to see Ino walking towards them. Hello, pig. Sakura greeted annoyed. Hi, Ino. Chan. Naruto waved happily as Ino stood in front of them. What do you want, pig? Sakura asked, annoyed at Ino's unwanted company. There's something I need to talk to Naruto about, Ino told her. Is it something you can't say in front of me? Sakura asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, Ino said through gritted teeth. She so didn't need this now. Fine, I'll see you later, Naruto. Sakura said goodbye to Naruto and walked past Ino, but muttered pig loud enough for her to hear. Ino glared at Sakura's retreating back and contemplated whether to use her jutsu on her, but decided not to since she was being watched. She'll get her back later. So what were you and Forehead talking about? She just wanted to ask me if I can train with her, Naruto tells her. Hey, so she took what I said seriously, Ino smiled. What was that? Naruto asked her, confused. I'll tell you later, for now let's find a place to talk. Ino suggested as they went inside a sweet shop. Fu watched them enter the sweet shop and then come out eating some dango. He didn't see two small kids laughing as they exited the same sweet shop. The two kids ducked behind an alley and sensed Fu's chakra getting farther away and sighed in relief before turning back in to Naruto and Ino. Our clones should keep him busy for a while," Naruto said before he and Ino teleported to their den. Hinata was feeding Katsu and Katsuo when they appeared. She said, "Naruto.kun, Ino.san, good morning." "Morning, Hinata." Ino said this as she noticed her kids close to Hinata, who was grinning broadly at their mother as she started to undress and transform into a vixen. Naruto leaned down to give his maid a kiss on the lips and said, "Morning, Hinata. Chan." "So Ino, Chan, what did you want to talk about?" Ino, who was nursing her kids, looked up. "Well, my dad linked with my mind to spy on me, and just before I kicked him out he felt and saw Inoki and Inoka." The eyes of Naruto and Hinata enlarged. When Naruto exclaimed, "So he knows?" The three sleeping kids moaned and then started to cry. Naruto quickly knelt down and gathered them in his arms. As he attempted to soothe them, Naruto cooed, "Hey, it's okay. That was just Daddy being loud, don't cry. Everything is alright." As he continued to soothe them, he thought, "Oh crap. Temari. Chan is going to kill me." He is relieved when they begin to quiet down, but it is brief because they soon begin to cry. "I am so dead." "You bet your ass you are." Temari's voice reverberated in everyone's head, and her kid cries subsided into whimpers. A twister formed in a cave corner, then faded away to reveal Temari in her human form, dressed in her ninja gear. Naruto looked at her anxiously and felt the three kids in his arms writhe as they made a grab for their mother. Temari. Chan, hey," he said. They lean in to feel her touch and lick her hands as she approaches them and strokes their cheeks. They cuddled up to her bosom, demanding to be fed, and she cooed, There, Mama's here. Sorry you three, but you can't get milk from a clone." She returned them to Naruto, to the kids' protests. "Hey, don't be like that. Mama is busy right now, but I promise we'll spend time together later." As she explained what had happened, Ino caught her attention by saying, "Hate to put a damper on your plans, but we've got a problem." Temari pinched the bridge of her nose in frustration and said, "Great, this morning just keeps getting better and better." As they all closed their eyes, Naruto said, "We all knew that this would happen eventually, and we've prepared for it. I've talked to Kakashi Sensei if there was anyone from the Yamanaka clan in the Anbu Corps, but he didn't know. I'm going to ask Granny next." With all eyes on her, Ino said, "No need, I asked my father and he knows who, but it isn't good." The eyes of Naruto and Hinata widened in surprise as Temari raised an eyebrow. "His name is Fu and he's part of a splinter cell of the Anbu called Root. The leader of the group's name is Danzo Shimura." Temari looked at Naruto and Hinata and remarked, "Okay, judging by your reactions he's someone serious." Looking down at her kids that have fallen asleep in her arms, Ino says, "You have no idea, if he's on to us then we stand to lose everything if we are discovered." Holding on to the three kids who were curiously looking up to their father, Naruto exclaimed, "Not gonna happen. This guy has no idea who he's dealing with. He's going to learn what happens when you deal with the Uzumakis." "Believe it." The girls grinned and then started laughing. "You got that right." Ino agreed as she stood beside him followed by Temari and Hinata. "Oh, before I forget, Naruto.kun, do you want to come over for dinner again tomorrow? Will your dad be there?" he asked. "Yes," Ino answered and saw him cringe before sighing. "All right." Ino raised an eyebrow. "Just like that, you're not going to try to get out of this?" "No, this was going to happen sooner or later. No sense in delaying it, besides it'll make you happy if your dad and I are in good terms," he said smiling. Ino's eyes widened in surprise before a warm feeling filled her heart. "I should have known." She smiled before standing on her tiptoes and planting a kiss on his cheek. "I think you should get back to wooing forehead, with things the way the air, who knows when you might have time for her." "You're right, I better go." He kissed each of his vixens on the lips before kissing his kids on their heads. He handed the three kids in his arms to Temari's clone then disappeared. "Oh, I almost forgot." Ino gently placed her kids down and placed the tips of her index and middle fingers on their foreheads. Her eyes started glowing followed by Inoki's and Inoka's before returning to normal. "What was that for?" Temari asked as Ino picked up her kids. "Just making sure my father can't connect with their minds, at least for now," Ino explained. Meanwhile, Sakura is doing one-finger push-ups with her right hand, and a boulder twice her size strapped to her back. 995,996,997,998,999, 1000. She then switched to her left hand and started again. 1, 2, 3. She continued this until she completed another 1001 fingered push-ups. Sakura stood up and untied the boulder from her waist and tossed it a few feet into the air, giving herself enough time to do a handstand, and then extended her right foot and left hand out just as the boulder landed on her left foot. She carefully balanced the boulder and started doing one-handed handstand push-ups. She did 1000 before switching to her other hand. She then did a front flip and caught the boulder with her right hand as she was on her feet, before setting it down with a thud. She wiped the sweat from her brow and leaned against the boulder. I wonder what Ino wanted to talk with Naruto about. She then remembered the conversation Ino and Tsunade had about Ino giving herself to Naruto. Her faces turns red at the mental image of Naruto and Ino being that intimate. She shook her head to get the image out of her head. I can't believe Ino and Naruto are in that kind of relationship. She brought her right hand up and touched her lips. But the kiss. Sakura recalled the kiss she shared with Naruto and how it ignited something within. The kiss was everything she had ever dreamt it would be, except that it was with Naruto instead of Sasuke. Sasuke. She whispered his name as she began to recall her recent encounter with him. What's going on with you, Sasuke-kun? She thought as she hugged herself when she remembered his cold stare. Sakura-chan. Sakura turned her head around and saw Naruto jogging towards her. Naruto? She turned her body around to face Naruto as he stood in front of her. What are you doing here and where's Ino? Ino had something she had to do and I wanted to see if you wanted to train, Naruto explained. Didn't she have something to tell you? Sakura asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, she told me what she had to say and then left, Naruto answered as he started stretching. So what do you have in mind? She asked as she crossed her arms. We're going to start off with some sparring, Naruto said as he got into a taijutsu stance followed by Sakura. Don't hold back this time, Sakura-chan, give me everything you've got. Fine. Sakura slammed her fist on the ground, causing it to shatter and crumble. Whoa! Naruto could barely keep his balance on the crumbling ground. Sakura wasn't finished yet as she lifted the large boulder she was using earlier in front of her and punched it, shattering it to pieces and sending them towards Naruto. Oh crap! Being unable to dodge, he was impaled by the rock pieces. Sakura eyed him suspiciously before turning around and throwing a punch which barely missed Naruto's face as the Naruto behind her disappeared in a puff of smoke. Yikes! He crouched down and tackled Sakura away from the battered area into a clear one. They both rolled on the ground trying to overpower and pin the other. Eventually Naruto managed to pin Sakura underneath him. Gotcha! Naruto grinned as he watched Sakura squirm underneath him. Get off! Sakura ordered as she tried to break free from his grip but was unable to. Why can't I break free? She thought as she used her monstrous strength to push Naruto away, but he seemed to easily hold her down. As this hit Sakura-chan, Naruto began. I thought Ba-chan taught you how to use her monster strength. He mocked, causing Sakura's left eye to twitch. What was that? Sakura asked with anger in her voice. I said, is this the extent of your training with Ba-chan? He mocked, knowing what will happen to him when she frees herself. That's it. Sakura brings her leg up and kicks Naruto with all her strength, pushing him off her and into the air. She then pushes off the ground and towards Naruto. Baka. Sakura aims to kick Naruto, but he grabs her foot and using the momentum of her kick to turn her around and throw her back towards the ground. Naruto winces as he watches Sakura crash against the ground. Maybe I overdid it a bit. As soon as he lands he heads towards where Sakura is, and as soon as he gets close enough he notices that she's unconscious and rushes towards her. Sakura-chan. He calls out to her in concern, but as he gets closer, a hand emerges from the ground and grabs his right ankle. What the? He's then dragged into the ground, only leaving his head. I can't move. Naruto flails his head around. He then watches Sakura emerge from the ground in front of him. Earth style. Headhunter jutsu. Sakura said while grinning as she looked down at Naruto. Hey, good one, Sakura-chan. Naruto complimented while grinning. But this won't hold me, and how do you know this jutsu? Sakura rolled her eyes. Duh, I doubt anything could. She then sat down in front of him and flicked his forehead. I know you better than that, and I asked Kakashi-sensei to teach me it since one of my nature affinities is Earth. Cool, do you know any other jutsus? Naruto asked curiously. Sakura scratched her cheek sheepishly. Actually no, that was the only other elemental jutsu I know. Naruto watched Sakura for a minute before a light bulb went off in his head. Hey, maybe that's what you need to do, learn new jutsus. Sakura blinked at this. I don't think that's it. But it's a start, maybe once you learn a couple more jutsus we can start figuring out what you're best at, Naruto told her. That makes sense. Sakura thought. Well, I know I'm good at close combat. Then let's build on that, and work on a way to fight someone who fights from a distance, Naruto added. Wow Naruto, when did you get so smart? Sakura asked, surprised that he had an idea that made sense. Hey, I take offense to that, Naruto said, annoyed, but his smile said otherwise. I'm just teasing, you're still the same baka you've always been. Sakura corrected herself while smiling widely. Let's go to the library and see if they have any earth and water elemental jutsus. Sounds like a date, Naruto said sheepishly. Naruto, this isn't a date, Sakura said, annoyed, before getting up and walking away. Hey wait Sakura. Chan, you forgot to dig me out. Sakura. Chan, Naruto called out to a retreating Sakura as he struggled to get free. After Naruto freed himself, he and Sakura went to the library and went to a special section for shinobi where they found jutsu scrolls ranging from Genin to Jonin. Where are the Ambu and Hokage level jutsu scrolls? Naruto asked, looking at the different scrolls. They're not here Naruto, and why would they? Sakura asked as she picked up some Chunin level earth and water jutsu scrolls. Do you honestly believe the Hokage's personal jutsus would be here for anyone to use? You have a point there, Naruto admitted, as he wouldn't want just anyone to use his jutsus. So what kind of jutsus do you have there? Ones that deal with close and long-range combat. Sakura answered him without taking her eyes away from the scroll she's reading. A pile of scrolls sits on top of the desk she's using. Naruto watched as Sakura read through scroll after scroll, a determined look in her eyes as she tries to find the right jutsu for herself. Naruto couldn't help but smile. That's the Sakura Chan I know and love, he thought before picking up a scroll and joining Sakura. They spent the remainder of the morning going over countless scrolls until lunchtime. Naruto stretched his arms out as he and Sakura exited the library. It feels great to get some fresh air, he said in relief. Naruto, we've only been in the library for a few hours, Sakura told him deadpanned. Yeah well I'm not used to being around books for that long, Naruto told her. Hey let's go get some ramen. Naruto I'm not. Sakura was cut off as Naruto started dragging her to Ichiraku's. Meanwhile in an unknown location. Sasuke, if you plan to take out the village elders you're going to have to deal with their shinobi, Madara tells him. If they get in my way then I'll just cut them down, Sasuke says simply. Your team won't be enough to take on all their shinobis, even that friend of yours didn't fare well against that Hyuga girl, Madara said, having heard from Shin himself how Hinata bested him. This information could prove useful in getting rid of Shin if he becomes a problem. Sasuke thought about what Madara had said. For Shin to be defeated by Hinata is very significant. He was now starting to reconsider giving up on her. She's even more powerful than I could have ever imagined. He then recalled her amazing body, but then he remembered the Genjutsu battle and how he was outmatched. If you join Akatsuki, we'll share the Biju's power with you, Madara offered. Sasuke was silent for a moment before speaking. Fine. Sasuke accepted as he stood up and left. He made his way through the halls until he found the room he was looking for. Inside are his teammates, Suigetsu sitting on a chair, Jugo leaning against the wall, Karen sitting on a bed and Shin laying on the floor with his hands behind his head. They all looked to Sasuke as he closed the door behind him. Shin. Yo. Shin replied by raising his foot. I need you to finish explaining to us how your sword work, Sasuke says. Shin pushes himself onto his feet. All right. He summons Blanc and Nore. You already know what Blanc and Nore can do, so I'll just continue from where I left off and tell you the drawbacks. Wait, you're going to tell us their weakness? Karen asked, surprised that he would do such a thing. I see no harm in it, Shin said, unconcerned. Even though Blanc can absorb chakra, at the same time enhance it, then fire it back, it can't do both at the same time. So if you're absorbing attacks you can't attack yourself? Suigetsu asked with interest. Basically, and when I attack with say a lightning style attack it can be countered with its opposite element which is wind, and for that brief instance Blanc's abilities are nullified. He explained. As for Norei, if it's hit with a physical attack that's covered in chakra, then Norei can't absorb the kinetic energy. Furthermore, if it's an elemental chakra like lightning or wind then Norei suffers damage. So you're not invincible after all. Karen smirks, but to her surprise Shin smiled. I'd be disappointed if I was, and besides these swords prove it. He raises Blanc and Norei above his head. If I suffered any physical injuries and I use Norei to enhance my physical abilities then there is a chance that I can make it worse, and if I have a serious injury it's impossible. Everyone stared at him in silence before Sasuke spoke. Shin, who are you? Blanc and Norei disappeared and Shin smiled widely. Well, if you must know. Everyone's eyes widen in disbelief. You're joking, right? Karen blurted out. Shin's response was straightforward. Meh, maybe I am, maybe I'm not, that's up to you. Sasuke began chuckling before bursting into full-fledged laughter, breaking the further silence. Sasuke.kun. Unnerved by Sasuke's laughter, Karen asked nervously. After a few more minutes of laughing while clinging to his knees and looking down, Sasuke's laughter subsided and he raised his head to give Shin a psychotic expression, saying, "This is just perfect, with you here there's nothing to stand in the way of my revenge." Pretty much, but I also have my own agenda to complete, Shin continued. What would that be, then? Karen raised an eyebrow in question. All Shin said to Karen was, "You'll see soon enough." With a sated expression on his face, Naruto left Ichiraku and returned to Konoha, patting his stuffed stomach and exclaiming, "Man, did that hit the spot? What makes you insist on consuming ramen each and every day?" Sakura asked, gazing at Naruto as she left Ichiraku. Because the world's greatest food is ramen. Naruto gave her a cheerful response. Have you never experienced anything else? She inquired inquisitively, aware of the response. Nope. You know Naruto, if you eat nothing but ramen then you're going to die really young, Sakura said, rolling her eyes. No way, I won't pass away until I'm Hokage, he said. If you want to live that long then you need to start changing your diet, at least try to limit how much ramen you eat, suggested Sakura. After giving it some thought, Naruto replied, I wouldn't even know what to try. Sakura said, tell you what, I'll help introduce you to different foods. How will you accomplish that? Naruto inquired. By taking you to some of my favorite restaurants for starters, we'll find out what types of foods you enjoy, suggested Sakura. Naruto smiled and said, now that definitely sounds like a date to me. Sakura interrupted herself as an idea came to her, saying, Naruto, this isn't okay. What? If you put effort into eating something besides ramen and cutting back on it, you can consider it a date, Sakura said. After giving it some thought, Naruto concluded that it was obvious. You got a deal, Sakura-chan. On the one hand, he gets to go on a date with Sakura, but on the other hand, he has to cut back on his precious ramen. Now let's go back to working on the jutsus we picked out for me. Sakura grinned and said, I knew you would see it my way. The two of them returned to the training field to continue their training. In the vicinity of the Land of Fire's Edge, Kankuro said, a little worn out from the drama this morning and Temari's move to Konoha, we made it to the border of the Land of Fire. Temari sighed. She wanted to move a bit more quickly, but her brother couldn't keep up with her. We should be there by this evening at the pace we're going. Hey, I'm not to blame for your sudden speed advantage over me. Why are you in such a rush to get to Konoha anyway? Kankuro remarked. Temari's abilities have suddenly increased and it seems to have happened around the time she started dating Naruto. You claimed that the punk is unaware of your approach. As she entered the forest, Temari irritatedly told him, it's called a surprise, you dumbass. Why put yourself through this for him? What happens if you are left alone in a strange village and he dies while on a mission? Kankuro uttered those words prior to being pinned against a tree. You have no right to say that. Temari gripped Kankuro's neck with her right hand as she threatened, her voice full of anger and a trace of melancholy. His vision grew hazy as Kankuro fought Temari's hold. Temari, he croaked. As Kankuro gasped for air, Temari let go of him and spun around. Of all the stupidest things you ever said. Let's just hurry up, she said, gritting her teeth to control her rage, before leaping atop a tree branch and continuing the rest of the way. What was the purpose of that? Kankuro followed Tamari after asking aloud while massaging his throat. As Tamari leapt from tree to tree, she thought, that idiot, how could he say something like that? Doesn't he recall what happened to Gaara? An image of Naruto's still body flashed through her mind. No, I won't let that happen. Tamari angrily shook her head. Tamari. Shan, inside her head, Tamari heard Naruto's voice. Naruto.kun. What is the matter, Tamari? Shan. With a worried tone, Naruto asks, I can tell you're really upset. As she began to relax, Tamari clarified, it's just something stupid Kankuro said. It must have been something if it got you so upset, said Naruto. You have no idea. Yeah well. Abruptly, Naruto's voice was interrupted. Naruto.kun? Naruto? Tamari began to hyperventilate and was on the edge of panicking. I'm here Tamari. Shan. What the devil happened, Baka? She calmed down, but her heart continued to pound against her chest, so Tamari demanded. Sakura. Shan is testing out her new jutsus on me while I'm training with Hera Wo, Naruto clarified. Tamari sighed, she's trying to better herself, so you should concentrate on helping her. She teased, not to mention, this is a great opportunity for you to gain some points with her. You're correct. I should pay attention. Naruto bid him farewell, saying, I love you. In response, Tamari said, I love you too, hi there. Who the? To find out what was wrong with Akio, Akiko, and Hikaru, you sent a clone. In the original Tamari's mind, the clone said, talking about whom they're fidgeting a lot, you're probably really stressed about something, right? Tamari sighed, can you calm them down? Afraid not, they're starting to sense that I'm not really you since I'm not emitting the distress, the replica replied. Tamari looked back to check if Kankuro was behind her, but as she turned her head forward, Kankuro finally caught up, just in time to see Tamari vanish. Okay, get ready to switch. What the? He rubbed his eyes just as the Tamari's shadow clone appeared in the place Tamari was originally when Kankuro removed his hands away from his eyes. Am I seeing things? Kankuro asked himself as Tamari's shadow clone speed off. Wait a minute. He went after her. The real Tamari is back at the den in her vixen form, nursing her kits. She looks down at them with affection before turning to Hinata, who was feeding her son Hikaru because she was busy with Akiko and Akio. When they were full, Hinata gave Hikaru back to Tamari as she lay down to let her kids sleep, but they had other ideas. Hikaru was climbing on her head, and Akio and Akiko were playing with her whiskers. As Hikaru played with Tamari's ear, Hinata gimped and remarked, I think they want to play. Why don't we get some fresh air since all three of you are so energetic? Hinata, I'll be taking Akio, Akiko, and Hikaru outside for a bit, Tamari said, getting up and lifting Hikaru off her head. Where are you going? Hinata inquired, just outside the den. Tamari told her as she turned back into her human form along with Hikaru. Tamari took a scroll resting on a nearby rock and opened it. She tapped on one of the writings and it burst into smoke which revealed clothes for a baby. She dressed Hikaru before dressing herself, then she went to Akio and Akiko. She placed her index and middle finger on their foreheads and before her eyes their fur began to rest giving way to smooth skin. Their muzzles pulled back into their faces and soon they are now normal-looking babies. After dressing them, Tamari picks up all three of her children and walks towards the entrance of the den. When she reaches the entrance the bright sunlight momentarily blinds the little ones before their eyes begin to adjust and when they did their eyes widen in awe. They took in the new surroundings, smells and sounds they have never heard before. Tamari smiled down at her children as she watched their amazed expressions. She walked to a spot underneath the shade of a tree and sat herself comfortably before placing them on the grass. The little ones grabbed the grass and pulled out a few blades of grass, and proceeded to put in their mouths. Tamari's heart was filled with joy and maternal pride as she watched her children take in everything with those curious eyes of theirs. It's important that they get used to their human form for when she and Naruto decide to take them out around the village. She felt a gentle breeze and closed her eyes to enjoy this moment. But the sound of laughter caused her to open her eyes and look at her babies who are on their backs reaching upwards while giggling. Hold it right there. Tamari warned, preventing her children's hands from reaching their mouths, saying, that's not food, and you just ate. What's so amusing? Tamari smiled and said, now what could possibly be so interesting? The babies continued to reach up in response. Tamari laughed and then looked up. Only the blue sky was visible to her. How about you take a nap now, huh? Before it turned into sand, a floating eyeball watched her as she got up and made her way back inside the den. Back at Suna, the cage had embedded sand grains into Temari's clothing fibers so he could use the third eye to keep an eye on things, but after seeing what he saw, he got up from his chair and left his office. He had covered his right eye with his index and middle fingers before taking it off, then leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a few minutes. Where are you heading, Lord Cage? From her desk outside of his office, his secretary inquired. Gaara simply said, I'm going to the leaf, and turned to leave. If I may ask, Lord Cage, why is a trip to Konoha suddenly necessary? As she and Gaara traverse the desert, Matsuri, a kunoichi, inquires. Gaara stated plainly, we're going to visit some family of mine. Do you have any relatives in Konoha? Startled, Matsuri asks. They went on in silence, and he only said, I do now. Back in Konoha, Naruto was lying on his back, panting heavily, and the area around him appeared to have been hit by a hurricane. Sakura sat in front of him, both of them looking somewhat roughed up, with cuts and bruises on their exposed skin and clothes. I think that's enough for today, Sakura said, getting up and approaching Naruto. Sakura stood over Naruto, protecting him from the sun, and he said, no complaints here. She held out her hand and said, thanks for the help, Naruto. When she offered to help him up, Naruto smiled and took her hand, but he pulled her in close and put his arms around her. Anytime Sakura-chan. Hey. Sakura smiled as she looked up to Naruto's grinning face before leaning his head down and capturing Sakura's lips in a passionate kiss. Sakura moaned in the kiss as she raised her arms to wrap around Naruto's back. Naruto caresses her back as he licks Sakura's lips, asking for permission to enter her mouth. She grants him permission and Naruto's tongue darts inside, exploring every corner of her mouth. Sakura's body shuddered as Naruto assaulted her mouth. Kami. As her hands gripped the back of Naruto's jacket and her own tongue probed his mouth, she thought, he tasted delicious. Naruto focused chakra on the tips of his right hand's fingers and ran them down Sakura's spine, causing her to arch her back as a shock of electricity passed through her body. Sakura broke the kiss by leaning her head back, and Naruto used this opportunity to plant kisses on her neck, causing her to moan loudly. He then suckled on a spot between Sakura's neck and collarbone, leaving a red mark. When another wave of pleasure hit her, Sakura thought, this is Naruto I'm talking about, he's full of surprises. If he keeps this up, I'm going to. Sakura closed her eyes for a moment, but when she opened them, they were slits before returning to normal. After placing Sakura's head on his chest, Naruto strokes his hand over her hair and says, Sakura-chan. The rhythm of his heartbeat calms Sakura, who closes her eyes and sighs proudly. Naruto muttered. Well? Sakura replied, content and with her eyes still closed. Let's go get some ramen. Sakura's eyes opened, and she quickly lifted her head to see Naruto smiling. Naruto, I thought I said. Sakura began, but Naruto interrupted her by kissing her mouth briefly before leaving. Naruto chuckled lightly and said, I know, I was just kidding Sakura-chan. But would you like to have something to eat? Before taking his hand and guiding him out of the training fields, Sakura said, well, I did say that I would get you to eat something different, so yes. Tamari and Kankuro eventually arrived at the village gates, where she gazed at the lowering sun and remarked, we barely made it before dark. As he put his hands on his knees and tried to keep up with his sister, who disregarded his pleas for rest, Kankuro added, we're lucky to have made it within a day considering how long it usually takes. Anyway, let's find a hotel, I'm just about ready to collapse. Without turning around, Tamari informed the shinobi on guard duty before making her way to the Hokage tower. You do that, I'll go see the Hokage, hopefully she's still in her office. Sakura ordered grilled chicken with white rice and steamed vegetables for herself and Naruto at a restaurant that is popular with young couples. Let's dig in. Sakura said cheerfully as she took a spoonful of her rice and steamed vegetables, and Naruto looked at his plate hesitantly before taking a spoonful of the rice and steamed vegetables and slowly bringing it towards his open mouth. He glanced at Sakura, who was grinning at him, and swallowed the lump in his throat before putting the food in his mouth and chewing for a few seconds before swallowing. "All right?" Sakura asked expectantly. "It's good. You enjoy it?" Sakura smiled as she asked. Naruto took another bite and said, "Yeah." He was a little taken aback to find that he enjoyed the steamed vegetables. As Naruto picked up a knife and fork to cut a piece of the chicken and put it in his mouth, Sakura suggested, "Try the grilled chicken next." "Delicious." He turned to face Sakura, who had a startled expression on her face. "What's wrong, Sakura-chan?" "I didn't know you were capable of using a knife and fork properly," replied Sakura. "Do you truly believe I'm that low?" Naruto gave a deadpan. "Sorry Naruto, I didn't mean to insult you, it's just. You assumed I had no table manners because I only eat ramen, right?" Before taking another bite of his grilled chicken, Naruto uttered those words. Sakura whispered, "It sounds mean when you say it like that." "You would be right though, pervy sage had to teach me how to dine properly as he put it, or else no girl would want to have dinner with me, and it's important for a Hokage to have excellent table manners." Naruto clarified as he wiped his lips. "The meal was delicious Sakura-chan." "What?" Sakura noticed that Naruto's plate was empty. "You're done already?" She then turned to face her own plate, which was still unfinished. "Yeah, I tend to eat fast," Naruto replied. "Whenever me and Ino-chan had dinner I always tend to finish first." "Oh, you're employed, correct?" Sakura almost forgot about that. "Naruto, you need to learn to appreciate your food." As he reached for Sakura's food with his fork, Naruto said to her, "I do savor it." Sakura swatted his away with her fork, saying, Hey, you already finished yours, leave mine alone. Why don't you order dessert if you're still hungry?" she said. "And don't eat it by yourself. When you share dessert with someone special, it tastes better," Naruto said with a smile and a wink at Sakura. All of Sakura's face flushed. Baka, stop joking around. "Who's kidding? Sakura-chan, you are very special to me," Naruto told her frank and earnestly. After a few moments of staring at him, Sakura turned to face her food and said, "Okay, but I'm not going to eat any quicker, so you're going to have to wait." Naruto smiled and said, "Sure." Sakura kept eating the remainder of her meal without making eye contact with Naruto, who was grinning while she did so. Naruto thought, Sakura-chan is so cute when she's blushing. Tsunade, meanwhile, is stretching in her chair in the Hokage's office until she hears her spine's joints pop. She exclaims aloud, "What a day," as she rises from her chair, but she hears a knock on her door and sits back down in her chair, calling out, "Come in. Milady, Tamari has returned." Shizune and Tamari are seen when the door opens. "Don't you think it was a little late and unexpected?" Tsunade raised an eyebrow and asked Tamari. Tamari said, "I'm sorry about that, Lady Hokage. It's okay. I simply didn't anticipate your arrival the following day. I believed you had a plan for today." Tsunade inquires. "I did, but I needed more time to finish what I had planned because of an unforeseen circumstance." As a picture of a beaming Naruto appeared in her mind, Tamari informed her. A little worried, Tsunade said, "Nothing serious, I hope." Tamari reassured her, "No, nothing like that. All right, so I take it that everything is set up at home?" The Hokage inquires. "Yes, milady." "Then let me be the first to welcome you to Konoha as her newest citizen and shinobi." "Very well then." Tsunade got up from her chair and held out her hand to her. "Thank you, milady. I will do the Leaf Village proud as I did with Suna," Tamari said, shaking Tsunade's hand. Tsunade joyfully released Tamari's hand and said, "I'm glad to hear that, Tamari. The will of fire is already burning brightly within you. Tomorrow you'll be initiated as Konoha's newest shinobi and you'll be assigned to your new team." Tamari nodded and remarked, "I understand. If you haven't found a place to stay yet, I can make arrangements for a temporary home until you find one," Shizune said. "Thank you for the offer, but I already have a place to stay and my brother Kankuro is staying at a hotel," Tamari responded. "This time, you had an escort?" Tsunade inquired. Unaware that her youngest brother was already en route to Konoha, Tamari explained. "Gaara insisted on it and he'll be arriving tomorrow to see my initiation as a Leaf Shinobi." Tsunade dismissed Tamari, and the former Suna Kunoichi nodded before leaving her office. "Very well then, get a good night's rest and I'll see you in the morning." Don't you think this is a nice way to end the day, milady? In an effort to see the bright side, Shizune says. Yes, after having meetings with unpleasant news, this is a welcome change of pace. Tsunade concurred. After a delicious dinner, Naruto and Sakura were discussing how Sakura could get better. Naruto, I want to try fighting against a large number of your shadow clones. Sakura said as they strolled through the illuminated streets of Konoha. How many are we discussing? Naruto inquired. 15, but I want you to keep replacing the ones that I defeat so that the number stays at 15. Sakura clarified. Are you sure that's a good idea? You probably won't last long if I do that, asked Naruto, who scrunched his face and crossed his arms. I want to test how much I can take and then improve from there, but I want to go another step forward and ask Ino for her help as well, said Sakura. Ino? Chan? Naruto looks at Sakura and asks. Yes, she can also do shadow clones and I want her to mix hers up with yours but still keep the number at 15. Sakura went on to explain. Naruto said, Sakura, Chan, don't you think you're pushing it? I know, but I need to push myself if I want to have a chance against Shin and Sasuke-kun. Sakura said with a clenched fist. Besides, I promised you that we will get Sasuke-kun back together. Sakura's shoulder was touched by Naruto, who grinned and said, You're right, but I'm going to make sure that you don't push yourself so hard that you collapse. Sakura told him, You seem to do that a lot and it's worked wonders for you. They both laughed, and they walked in silence the rest of the way to Sakura's house before saying goodnight to each other. Naruto felt someone was watching him, so he kept walking home while his observer kept his distance. As soon as he saw his apartment building, his observer stopped following and stayed out of sight. Naruto opened the door to his apartment and kicked off his ninja sandals as he entered his room without turning on the lights, and he collapsed on his bed, muttering, Home sweet home. He went into his room without turning on the lights, and instead reached for the covers, but his hand grabbed something soft. Naruto squeezed it several times and finding its softness very familiar, it feels like. Are we eager to get going? When he heard the voice, Naruto's eyes widened. He sat up quickly on his bed and turned on the lamp on the drawer next to his bed, revealing Tamari lying beneath the covers beside him. Tamari. Chan. As Tamari sat up on Naruto's bed, she smiled and said, Surprise. Why are you in this place? As he observed his mate's appearance, Naruto inquired. She had her hair down and was dressed in a sleeveless white shirt that draped over her enormous breasts. Simply put, Tamari said, I'm moving in. What? Well, only for a little while, we'll have to go look for a bigger place soon, Tamari replied. Wait, what exactly is happening? Confused by the circumstances, Naruto demanded. Tamari pulls Naruto down and places herself on top of him, saying, Let me welcome you home. She plants her lips over his and says, Let's discuss that in the morning, but for now. At the entrance to the village, Matsuri and Gaara approach the shinobi manning the entrance, and Matsuri exclaims with relief, Phew, we finally made it. Lord Kazekage, astonished to see the Kazekage in front of him at this late hour, one of the shinobi on guard uttered those words. I'm here visiting family. Tell the Hokage I'll be staying at a hotel and that I'll speak to her tomorrow. Gaara let him know. As Gaara and Matsuri made their way inside, the guard obeyed, saying, Yes sir. Matsuri. Yes, Lord Kazekage. Matsuri gazed expectantly at Gaara.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.